Welcome to the special meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of Glendale, dated December 13th, 2017. I have roll call, please.
Planning Commissioners Astorian.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Manukian.
Here.
Saturian. And Shabazian.
Here.
May I have a report regarding the posting of the agenda?
The agenda for this meeting was posted on Wednesday, December 6th, 2017, on the bulletin outside City Hall and also on the city's website.
Very good. Thank you very much. Please rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Moving on. New business. Zoning map amendment. Location 206 North Kenwood Street and 223 to 241 and 247 North Jackson Street. Proposed mitigated negative declaration. General plan amendment. Case number PGPA 1725746. Zone change. Case number PZC 1725725. Development Agreement Case Number PDA 1726520, and Alley Vacation Case Number 186V. Applicant CPVI Jackson Street LLC, so on and so forth. May I have the staff presentation, please?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Milka Toledo. I am the case planner for this project, Jackson Street Apartments. The applicant, CP6 Jackson Street LLC, also known as Carmel Partners, is the developer, not the Glendale Unified School District, so I want to make that clear for the audience. It is Carmel Partners. Okay. Location 206 North Kenwood Street and 223 through 241 North Jackson Street. We have an L-shaped lot bounded by, to the north, two-story multifamily buildings. We also have to the south Wilson Avenue, approximately 297 feet of frontage. To the east, we have Jackson Street, approximately 536 feet of frontage. To the west, we have Kenwood Street, approximately 132 foot of frontage, and Allen Daly High School as well. The lot size is 113,289 square feet, approximately 2.6 acres. The current zoning for this property is R1250, high density residential. That is the general plan designation as well. As far as the context and their current site, it involves the demolition of the existing Glendale Unified School District headquarters, which we're all familiar with, directly northwest of our Civic Center. The headquarters office, along with associated buildings, 2 modular buildings, and a multifamily residential building and surface parking lots, will all be demolished. The new development involves constructing a 5-story with mezzanines, 286-unit residential development wrapped around a multi-level parking structure with 385 parking spaces. And I've made that correction. Originally, the 394 noted in your report was based on previous plans. So the new number is 385 with the current proposal. And as I stated, the lot is 2.6 acres, consisting of 14 parcels. The entire block bounded by Wilson to the north, Wilson Avenue to the south, California Avenue to the north, Jackson Street to the east, and Kenwood Street to the west are all zone R1250 high density residential zone. The area located immediately south of the project site, and that's between Wilson Avenue, Louise Street, and Isabel Streets, is zone East Broadway District, as defined in the DSP. As far as the neighborhood context, the surrounding area, again, is zone R1250 high density residential. That would be to the north, to the east, and to the west, and is developed with structures mostly multifamily residential, ranging in height from 1 to 3 stories. There's an existing high school, Allen Daly High School, located on North Kenwood Street, adjacent to the property. This school will remain. It's not proposed as part of the demolition of this project. And along with that, there are 15 parking spaces there now that currently serve the site for the students, for the school, which also will remain. The property is located on the northeast corner of Jackson Street and Wilson Avenue, our zone C3, Height District 3, which is commercial services zone. And it's developed with 1- and 3-story office buildings. We can see that on the lower photo in the slide. The DSP area is consisting of both residential and commercial uses. And again, this is on the south side of Wilson Avenue. The southeast corner of Jackson Street and Wilson contains a financial institution. It also contains a bakery across the street. We have offices, and we also have a church with associated parking lot on the corner of Kenwood and Wilson Avenue. The GPA zone change goals. GPA stands for General Plan Amendment. General Plan Amendment zone change is required because of the type of development, the density in particular, that is being proposed while maintaining the DSP goals. I've included them in your motions, but just to highlight some of them. It requires a use that is consistent with the surrounding residential land uses. It meets local and regional needs for housing opportunities in close proximity to work, recreation, and shopping areas. And it provides an incentive for a wide range of downtown housing types because this is an infill project and it adds a mid-rise housing option near downtown Glendale that adds a variety of housing types and sizes sought by the DSP. The General Plan Amendment and Zone Change, again, contains 14 lots, and I do have a map that's included in your packet, and I will also be highlighting it in my presentation. Once again, we're dealing with multifamily, high-density residential zone, and the proposal is to change it to the Downtown Specific Plan East Broadway District. So once again, it's high-density residential, R1250. The developer's proposing to change it to DSP East Broadway District, and that would be the general plan designation. Oops. Planning staff recommends, in addition to this, which is not part of the site, this is not part of the applicant's proposal, staff is recommending a GPA and zone change for one parcel, and that would be the location at 247 North Jackson Street. And why? That would be for consistency and to avoid a rezoning that would potentially create a mid-block split in residential zoning designations. And for this reason, staff is separately requesting the Planning Commission recommend the City Council initiate a general plan amendment, a zoning map, and downtown specific plan amendments to amend the general plan designation and zoning for that one lot known as APN 5642-017-005, located at 247 North Jackson Street. And it's located adjacent to and immediately north of the property. The proposal, it involves the demolition of the existing GUSD, Glendale Unified School District headquarters offices and associated buildings, 2 modular buildings, and a multifamily residential building and surface parking lots. The new development involves constructing a 5-story with mezzanine, 286 residential development wrapped around a multi-level parking structure with 385 parking spaces located on the 2.6-acre site. This would involve 42 studios, giving you the mix, by the way, of the unit mix. 42 studios, 174 one-bedroom units. That includes 6 lofts, which would equate to approximately 75%, and 72 bedroom units with 7 lofts, which equates to 24%. Here's the map which identifies the boundaries of the map. On the left shows the proposed site where it is zoned R1250 and shows the boundaries of the subject site along with its relationship to the adjacent or neighboring zones. Again, we have to the south, DSP East Broadway District, to the north, R1250. The red shaded area is the C3 commercial zone. The brown designates, again, the R1250. And the corner property, which is a standalone that I've highlighted, staff recommendation, which I just mentioned to you, is not part of the project's proposal, not part of the developer's proposal. Staff is initiating that one lot, 247 North Jackson Street, to also be zoned for the reasons I stated earlier. The map to the right shows us the DSP boundaries. We have to the north, the DSP encompasses, to the north side we'd have, or to the north of the map, the south side of Wilson Avenue is the boundary. To the south, the southerlymost point of the DSP would be the south side of Colorado Street. To the east, it would be the west side of Glendale Avenue, and to the west, it would be Louise Street. The red with the red arrow designates the subject site as it relates to the DSP and its relationship. As we can see, it's located outside the DSP, hence why the developer is proposing a zone change in GPA. So just for clarification. The alley vacation. The developer is requesting to vacate the easterly portion of Alley 220, which is 12 feet wide and northerly of Wilson Avenue and easterly of Jackson Street. Currently, the alley is improved with concrete pavement, and it contains a power pole with overhead electrical and telecommunication conduits. Upon vacation, the alley will become part of the proposed Jackson Street Apartments residential project. And the applicant is working with our GWP and various telecommunication companies to relocate the facilities prior to construction. And the photo to the right shows a view looking east as I'm standing at the westerly point of that alley. We have the development agreement, which is part of their proposal, which is required by the DSP to use incentives. The East Broadway District has a 60-foot height limit. It has 80 feet with incentives is allowed, and the applicant is proposing 75 feet in height. The maximum number of stories in the East Broadway by right is 4 stories. With incentives, 5 stories. The applicant is proposing 5 stories, partial 6 stories proposed, and that would be where the garage structure is. At the rooftop, there's a clubhouse, and I will go into further detail in my presentation. But that would result in the 6th story. And that would also require a standards variance. The FAR, 2.5 is the maximum allowed. Well, let me rephrase that, is by right. 2.5 is by right, 2.74 with incentives. The applicant is proposing 2.59 FAR. There is an open space incentive, and they're proposing it at 4,425 square feet of additional publicly accessible open space. The workforce housing component is also part of this project, and they are proposing 10% of the 286 units, which equates to 29 units for workforce housing. We've discussed the alley vacation, so I will not go into further detail. The variances from the DSP, we actually have two. You will not be reviewing those today. I've included a brief description of what they are. There are no findings prepared for them because that's not part of your motion this evening. You will be reviewing and making a recommendation on, as I alluded to earlier, on the GPA, on the zone change, on the development agreement, and a motion on the alley vacation. But the variance is part of the scope of the project. But that will be reviewed by the City Council if this project continues to move forward along in the process. One of the variances for on and above grade parking, the code requires subterranean parking. The clubhouse structure that I was just alluding to earlier, it's built at the 6th floor of the amenity deck. Maximum 5 stories is allowed in the DSP. Hence, standards variance is required. Design review will be reviewed by the City Council. But again, we've pinned up plans and we've included as part of the packet because you need to see what the building is going to look like. So we've included all the architectural drawings for you. So I have a chart that shows the zoning comparison of the R1250 standards compared to DSP standards in the East Broadway district and with incentives and what the applicant is proposing. So in this chart we can see the maximum allowed in the R1250. Would you like me to go over in detail what the content of this chart is, or can I just go straight to what the applicant is proposing? So is that okay? What would the commission like for me to do? You want me to continue moving along? Okay. So the proposed development involves 286. That's what the applicant is proposing. That equates to 1 unit per 396 square feet of lot area. 110 dwelling units per acre. They are proposing 5-story residential portion and a 6-story parking structure, 75 feet. They're proposing, as far as the unit types and sizes, it ranges from 600 square feet to 889 square feet for studios and 1 bedroom with loft. And they're proposing 993 to 1,216 square feet is the range for 2 bedrooms with loft. And for the FAR, they are proposing 2.59, which equates to 293,634 square feet. Lot coverage is not applicable in the DSP. Parking. The proposed development, the applicant is proposing 356 for the residential units, 356 spaces, and 29 guest spaces for a total of the 385. That will be within 2 levels of underground and 5 levels above, again wrapped around by the residential structure. The private outdoor space, they are proposing 140 square feet per unit, which includes both common and private open space. That's part of the DSP standards. The DSP standards for common outdoor space include, they're proposing 59,827 square feet total, common open space. Publicly accessible, 5,467 square feet. And excess in the publicly accessible open space, 4,425 square feet. The additional open space, publicly accessible, 5,467. And the landscaping we need to verify that. It definitely exceeds standards, but the actual number, we need to verify it. This is a more detailed illustration or chart of the common open space calculation, which I just discussed. What I do want to highlight is that in the R1250 private and common open space requirements based on the 113 units is a little different than the DSP. Private open space would be 40 square feet per unit in the R1250 zone, which equates to 4,520 or 4,520 square feet per unit and total. And common open space would be for residents only. A total of 10,050 square feet would be required based on 113 units. And additional open space based on the width of the lot, if it's greater than 90 feet, there's an additional calculation for additional common open space required for 90 feet or greater lot width. And approximately 5,100 would be required. This plan is to illustrate the site plan and the location of the common open spaces, specifically also the public accessible open space. Located facing Wilson, there's a public area with courtyard. There's also on the corner, that would be on the site's southeast corner, which is inclusive of an arcade, and there's also facing Jackson along the north side, a public area with courtyard. I will try to go through these fairly quickly in the interest of time. So here we have the elevations and renderings. If you have any questions, please stop me along the way, but I would like to go through these a little quicker since you have them in your packet. By the way, this elevation is the elevation facing Wilson. So for the audience, it would be bounded by Jackson to the east, Kenwood to the west, facing Wilson Avenue where the parking lot is currently there. This is the facade for that location. And that's why on the lower right-hand corner, I have what that corner is being proposed to look like with the tower element, and then a view looking northeast along Wilson Avenue as you come from the west. This would be the east elevation on the top. That would be Jackson Street. On the southerly, or my left-hand side, you see where the tower element, that's the corner of Wilson and Jackson. And then as you move along towards the right-hand side, that would be the most northerly point of the site on Jackson Street, with the parking entrance towards mid-block. If you note, that's where the parking structure entrance is located. And I will continue moving along. This is the view from the north, California Avenue. We have a portion of the building on the left-hand side. In the background, I identified the parking structure from a distance as you're actually standing, let's say, in front of that alley that's currently there looking south, because that portion, that alley will remain. It's an existing 20-foot alley. And then to the right, there's an existing one-story residential across the alley. That would be to the west. On the lower portion of the slide, we have a view looking south on Jackson Street and California Avenue. So the one corner property, which is actually on the lower right-hand corner, will remain. That's a 2-story apartment building. And that is the actual lot that I alluded to earlier that staff is proposing that the council initiate a recommendation to the council for a GPA and a zone change for that one lot. This is not part of the site. This is what staff is recommending. sections and roof plan. And the roof plan identifies the locations of mezzanines. And this section, you can, on the lower section, you can have a clearer view of the garage, the two levels below, and then the above ground. CEQA, a mitigated negative declaration, MND, was prepared for the project. It was circulated for a 20-day public review period from November 17th to December 6th. Staff reviewed the comments and responses and will be preparing responses for the City Council hearing. Comments received were minor and did not warrant recirculation of the MND. And I've identified some of the changes. I think I captured all of them. Changes included a reduction in the total floor area, which is minor, and the proposed parking in order to accommodate the reduction in floor area, and they added additional publicly accessible open space, and they made some design modifications in an attempt to reduce the mass and scale of the building. GPA and zone change findings. They're actually outlined in the motions. Briefly, I'll highlight them for you. This evening, you have a task to make a decision, recommendation to the City Council for the GPA and the zone change. And how does this project meet the goals and objectives of the general plan? So the project supports the land use element goals of improving the economic situation, the visual image of the present office development located at the property by replacing it with a new residential development, a use that is consistent with the surrounding residential land uses. The project is compatible with general plan housing element goal number 1, which is to meet local and regional needs for housing opportunities in close proximity to work, to recreation, and to shopping areas. And the project supports the DSP goal of providing incentives for a wide range of downtown housing types, because this infill project adds a mid-rise housing option near downtown Glendale that adds a variety of housing types and sizes sought by the DSP. The project's requested general plan land use map amendment and the zone change, and the amendments are consistent with the elements of the general plan and will aid in implementing citywide policies at the neighborhood level. And the project promotes the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare of the citizens of Glendale. And for consistency and to avoid rezoning, that would potentially create a mid-block split. We discussed it earlier. Staff is separately requesting that the Planning Commission amend or recommend to the City Council to initiate the general plan amendment and zone map and down to specific plan map amendments to amend the one lot located at 5642-017-005, 247 North Jackson Street. And I have 241, but it's actually 247. Should the Planning Commission wish to recommend approval of this project to the City Council, staff recommends the following conditions to the design which address the mass and scale to bring the project to conformance with the DSP East Broadway District. That was included in your staff reports. I can read it verbatim, but the core of it is to reduce the overall mass and scale by providing a 4-story structure while not allowing the 5th-story units if they are not visible. Well, excuse me, while allowing for 5th-story units if they are not visible from adjacent streets. Provide a minimum 12-foot setback from the property along Jackson Street facade, once again, to provide further relief to the mass and scale. and the development agreement terms. If constructed, the project shall comply with all conditions of approval and substantially consistent with the city-approved plans as determined by the city in its reasonable judgment. In the event that the developer or its successors has not commenced construction of the project prior to expiration of the 3-year term, or proposes a project that is not substantially consistent with the plans during the term, then the city shall commence proceedings to rezone the property to the zoning in effect prior to the adoption of this development agreement. That would be the R1250 zone with high-density residential general plan designation. And such revised zoning shall be deemed an applicable rule once adopted. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for staff, I am available.
Yes, let me start by asking one question. The 247 North Jackson rezoning, has the owner of the property been notified of this? Because you did not speak to that.
I don't believe so. I don't believe we're required to notify them. I'd like to defer to Laura Stotler, because I know we've had this discussion in the past.
Yeah, we sent a notice out to all owners of property within 500 feet. So yes, they would have received a notice of this hearing.
Was the notice sent to the owner's address, or was it posted at the property?
We do both. We actually send it to owners and occupants within 500 feet and separately post the property, or the applicant posted the property.
So the effect of the rezoning is to bring 247 North Jackson into the DSP as well, right?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. DSP East Broadway, yes. In order to avoid spot zoning is.
No, I
in
get
other
that.
words.
I'm just trying to figure out what possible effects it would have on their property values, and whether I would not prefer to have them, I know what your policies are, and I know, I'm not doubting that you went within the letter of the law, but I wonder if, in this instance, we would rather not have a more stringent approach to the matter rather than the by the book. In any event. Also, so at the end of the day, you expect us to discuss and deal with 2 resolutions, correct?
We actually
Exhibits
have.
1 and 2.
There's 2 resolutions for the GPA and zone change. One for the subject site, which pertains to what the developer is requesting,
And then one for.
and then one for the 247 North Jackson Street. The other resolution is for the DA, the development agreement. So there's actually essentially 3 resolutions. And then one motion that would be for the alley vacation.
Do we have? Am I
Yes.
missing? You have it? You're good? All right.
Okay, I do have a question. Mayor.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question from our city attorney. As most of you know, I have a long relationship with Glendale Unified School District. We do have the DNM Foundation has for years had after-school program there. So, question I have from you: is there any conflict for me to be on this panel, or there is any reason which you would advise me?
Members of the Planning Commission, Commissioner Satori, we did take a look at that issue specifically today. We looked at 1090, and we looked at the FPPC regs, which are the Fair Political Practices Commission regs, to determine whether there was any conflict of interest with your serving on this board, hearing this matter, and making a recommendation, and there is no conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I will stay.
All right, good. The more the merrier. All right, so do we have any substantive questions of the staff from the members of the commission, please?
I don't know about subsidy, but I do have some questions.
If you say it, it's substantive. Go ahead.
247 North Jackson, again, we go back to owner notice. I understand mailing out and posting should be sufficient, at least bureaucratically, but this city is known to take the utmost and even the most arduous road to work with the owners to make sure that they understand what is going on. Has anybody tried to contact the owner outside of your normal channels? I'm talking about 247 North Jackson.
No, we have not.
Yet you're asking us to make the findings in the resolution. I think it's number 2, if I'm not wrong, without having heard from the owner one way or other, whether they are for or not, or they have concerns that may be addressed.
Members of the commission, Commissioner Astorian, if I could address that issue. What the staff's recommendation is for the planning commission to consider recommending to the city council for the city council to initiate the zone change. So this is really not a technical commencement of that zone change. It would still be up to the city council to initiate on its own motion. It's just to consider whether or not it should be included within the expansion of the boundary or the zone change for the DSP. So this is just the very beginning of that consideration. If you believe that it is appropriate that it be included from a policy standpoint, that would be a recommendation that would be forwarded to the city council for their consideration of whether or not to make a motion to actually start the process for a zone change. So I believe staff is hearing what you're saying concerning this particular property owner and their notice. The due process involved with this would continue, and a notice would be given again to the property owner. Certainly an effort could be made when the initiation on the motion to initiate by the city council were to come before the city council, and that could be taken as part of your recommendation that that owner be individually contacted, not just through the technical noticing processes that technically comply with law. So just for your information, that's what that process would look like.
Commissioner Astorian, if and when we discuss that resolution, we can always make specific recommendations in addition. So I'm not. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things we're considering is development agreement terms here. And I know that Commissioner Astorian has asked the definition of the workforce housing. Besides workforce housing having a better economic, value than the other forms of affordable housing, was there any type of a study or data that allowed or helped you to go this direction? Because we do have need for low-income housing, other forms of affordable housing, and yet we went down this road to workforce. So do you have data backing this up, allowing them to go this route?
Mr. Chairman, Philip Lanspan, Director of Community Development. No, we did not do a study. The proposal was to include workforce housing. It will be rent restricted for 55 years. So in other words, as market demand goes up and can fluctuate up and down, these rents would be tied to area median incomes. But no, we did not do a study as to whether there would be affordable housing in it or not. It was not a proposal of the developer.
The developer, because of their proposal of the workforce development, get incentives by proposing workforce development, housing development?
No.
Could we have some sort of definition of what workforce
Workforce housing is 120% to 165% of the LA County's AMI, because we don't have a workforce housing adopted here locally in the city of Glendale.
Say it again.
120% to 165% of the average median income,
That's right.
AMI.
So maybe turning around the other way, what is it as far as we look at the market value of the rental units? Where does that fall in? 90 percentile, 100 percentile, 110 percentile?
When you look at affordability, you take 30% of the gross income. I can walk through the math if you want, but it would be about $2,500 $2,600 for all housing costs, including utilities. So that's what somebody in workforce housing could afford to pay.
That's about the market value.
Those are pretty close to market rate.
Then the follow-up question is that, you say you did not provide any incentives because they provide this workforce development housing. Do we have any form of affordable housing component in this project?
Not by definition, formal affordable housing. Again, it was not proposed by the developer. They're using the incentives that are found in the code.
And yet we're developing 286 units here, right?
286, that's correct.
Mr. Chair.
Give me a second. Mr. Saturia, do you have any questions? Okay, then.
I want to follow up with my colleague's conversation about workforce housing, its definition versus what really affordable housing is. These are totally two different things. I understand that we will fix the rent and the expenditure according to the AMI, but at 165%, as my fellow commissioner said, we are very close to the market rates. When somebody or a developer asks for a total exponential increase and or change of the downtown specific plan, this city in actuality is doing this developer a service. In lieu of that service, there should be a public benefit.
Thank you.
Offering workforce housing, it's nuanced. It may be considered en vogue. It's all good, but that is not affordable housing. I want to go back for a minute and ask a question about that. In your GAP or your GPA findings, you referred to that the adoption or the extension of the downtown specific plan borders will be consistent with our general plan. I submit to you, Mr. Chair, that the existing zoning of R1250 is also consistent with our general plan.
I have no doubt.
So,
But there was, okay.
I did not get an answer, but I just wanted to get a point across, that's all.
Well, we know that workforce housing is not affordable housing. Otherwise, it would be called affordable housing. In any event, moving on, the applicant has submitted a card. Scott Baker? Oh, give me a second. The representative for the applicant.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm very proud of the project we have before you to present. My name is Niels Cotter. I oversee development in Southern California for Carmel Partners. Before I go into my words here, I just want to mention that regarding that applicant or the zone change for that one property to the north, we actually reached out to them and talked to them about that, so they are aware of the fact that their property is being rezoned. And before I actually go into the actual presentation I want to give, I want to first thank all the folks behind me who came out. They could be at dinner or whatnot. They're coming out here to support this wonderful project for the exact reason that you...
Ladies and gentlemen, ma'am?
Okay. So, excuse me. So,
Please,
for some
second.
of the folks...
1 second, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a very orderly meeting tonight. We really are. We are not going to respond to the speakers from the gallery. If you have something to say, you should have filled out a pink slip, given it to me, and you will be afforded 2 minutes. If someone makes a statement that does not sound right to you, that's wonderful. Keep it to yourself, please. Thank you very much. With that, please start over again.
Thank you very much. So just an aside clarification, thank you for all those who did come in support, not necessarily everyone behind me. That's maybe a little bit better way. For those who didn't come out tonight who support the project, I just want to thank them also. We, in the last 24 hours, received over almost 200 signatures on a petition that was sent out just in support of this project, and that's only in the last 24 hours. So there's a lot of folks that are excited. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the planning department and all their hard work. They helped guide us, they pushed us, they continue to try to improve the project with us, and I really appreciate all their hard work. You know, I'd like to tell you first a little bit about Carmel Partners, because this isn't our first project in Glendale. We are, in my opinion, a unique company in our platform, in our track record, in our approach. Regarding our platform, we're one of the only development companies in California that is structured in a way where we have our own internal equity. So the money that we spend on these projects is our internal money. It is not a New York fund or somebody else like that. It is our own money. We are long-term holders, and we build great projects. You know, our project in the city of Glendale, which is Altana, has just won the Project of the Year across all of Southern California for the best multifamily project by the Multifamily Council. Very proud of that project. And this is a slightly different project in the sense of context and architecture. But again, we believe in quality, we believe in long-term quality and long-term ownership and doing good for the community. Regarding our approach, I think it's very important to mention that we are all about respecting and listening to our neighbors. We understand that there's some folks here tonight who are here who are not necessarily huge fans. We're happy to listen to them and try to address their concerns. In fact, had some meetings today and understand a little bit better about where all this is coming from. But just to talk about the project itself, I will tell you that I truly believe that this project, as proposed and with some conditions, is absolutely a benefit to Glendale, the city, the school district, and the future of Glendale in truly meaningful ways. In a typical project, we'd just be talking about the benefits of the specific site, the specific project, but I think it's important in this context to really understand what's at stake tonight and why there's so many folks who are in support of this project. So what's really at stake right here? Well, GUSD, supporting GUSD. And when I say that is that this project will enable the school district to move into a new building and redevelop this site in exchange. And what that means is a school district will be moving into a building in 3 times the size that it currently occupies, a LEED certified building that is fully structurally retrofitted and fully sprinklered. Sprinkler building creates a safer environment for the people that work in the building. Statistically speaking, from the NFPA, a person who works in a sprinkler building is 6 times safer from a life safety perspective than someone in a non-sprinkler building. Additionally, this building eventually would have to be structurally retrofitted per the codes, or certain cities would force that today. The other thing is that as far as safety and what the big picture is it's protecting the Glendale firefighters. A sprinkler building is 3 times safer in a fire incident than a non-sprinkler building. This is just straight statistics. So at the end of the day, these are 2 very, very important elements that the future of Glendale, the future of the children, and that are at stake here. And at the end of the day, more resources, more money can be spent for the teachers, for the students, and the programs. But I'll let the folks that came today to speak a little bit more about that. Now, to transition to more of the project-specific information. Currently, right now, there is on the existing lot, there is a 65, 70-foot building that is a non-conforming use and surface parking lots. So we are creating a high-density residential project that's at a higher density and mass than is currently allowed under the current zoning. But I think it's in line with what we have today. Now, to clarify some of the points, Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Historian, that you made about the workforce housing and what that really means to the community. So it's kind of a fine balance. In affordable housing, you're offering the units at a lower rent and also at a different income class, of course. The challenge with affordable housing, call it very low, moderate, even that, is it excludes a lot of people who need help. And the reason why you don't see a lot of workforce housing being built today is because in regular situations, there's no incentive associated with workforce housing. There's SB 1818 for moderate, for very low, for these types of housing, but in workforce there isn't. And so in some ways, the folks who do champion affordable housing, call it price-restricted housing, it's the forgotten class. It's the folks that work hard every day that are now eligible for this housing. So I'll give you an example. School teacher starting salary is in the $60,000 to $70,000 range. They would be eligible for this housing. And what that means, but under an 80% of median income, a school teacher is not eligible. A police officer is not eligible for this housing. And the net benefit to Glendale is, call it a 30 to 50% discount on market rents. You can check the market rents as it relates to what the price restriction is and the rents that we get in our projects in Glendale, and you can see how big of a gap it really is. So it is a meaningful amount. I understand that the hesitation, but that said, the reason it's so new is because people don't really use it because there's no sort of state benefit to it. And so I think it's very important that we don't forget the people who work hard, the people that still need help, the households, the people with kids and all that. So I think that this housing legitimately creates a huge discount for the working class. So I think that's one of the major project benefits. The other benefit is the public open space. We're doing nearly double what is required under the incentive under the DSP. Now, we're not in the DSP, but we're doubling that workforce housing. We're trying to create meaningful parks, little parklets, spaces for people to relax, enjoy the neighborhood, where right now there's a surface parking lot. And these are dimensions such that there is a meaningful amount of open space. The other thing we've done, which is something I'm really excited about, is we've created, right now under contract, we have a small lot at the very north end of the site on Jackson in California. We just put that under contract. Assuming that the city of Glendale, that the folks who are excited about this project are excited about this location, we can build a park there. We've offered to the city saying, we're willing to do all the work, and we have these park fees that we pay with our projects, which are very big. And all we're saying is, take our actual cost, credit that towards the cost of the park, and we can build this amazing amenity for the neighborhood right in that corner. Now, we don't have to do that. Most developers just write the check and walk away. But if that's something that is meaningful to the community and the stakeholders at large want to see that, we are more than willing to do that. We'd love to get the community involved and celebrate this opportunity to create multiple green corners in this space. And our landscape architect is here to talk about that also. I want to address something that seems to be one of the primary issues for the folks who have concerns about this project, which is parking. So currently what happens right now is there's 185 total parking spaces on the lot. There are working in that building right now about 200 employees alone. So right there's already a deficit, which means if all 200 have a car, that means that 15 are already parking in the street. But that's just the beginning. There is the Daily High School that uses that parking lot. There's the credit union. There are visiting parents. There are vendors. And so personally, I've never been able to find a spot in that parking lot because it's just very challenging. It's totally full. And people are parking on the street, and it's causing angst with folks who have condos in the neighborhood. Just meeting with some folks this morning saying, we can't find a spot. It's, we have one per unit in our current condo. And I know that that's not a zoning issue, but at the end of the day, I'm here to listen to the community. All these folks here that have issues, I'm willing to sit down personally and listen to every issue that we have. And I think that our success in development has been this very authentic, honest approach. I can't necessarily solve all the issues. We can't necessarily create a perfect project. But what we can create is a beautiful, positive project for the community, because that's very important to our company and I think to the greater good. So our project, by the way, is providing 385 spaces. It's parked over code. It's parked one per bedroom, and we're also exploring other ways to mitigate, per these conversations we have had today, to help alleviate the parking issue. And this is very real. I mean, we want to solve this problem because it affects everybody, including people in our project. One of the other issues, concerns is traffic. So will this project cause additional traffic? Well, in most situations, you're taking an empty parking lot like our project in Altana and adding units to a parking lot. Here, in exchange for this project, we're demolishing what is existing, which is a very, very intensive use office building. And so if you look at the traffic information and traffic study, the one issue that we have in the area as far as traffic is the intersection of California and Jackson. Currently, it's level of service F. To cross that intersection in rush hour takes about 90 seconds. It's a four-way stop sign. The way we're going to solve that is we're actually going to add a stoplight there and reduce that from 90 seconds to 30 seconds, effectively one turn of a stoplight. So it's not every day that you could say a project improves traffic, but in this case it does. And then finally, the potential park space, which I talked about, I want to touch on that a little bit more, but if you have guidance or thoughts on that, we're more than happy to explore that. We'd love to add that to the project. And without further ado, I want to introduce some of our architects who I think have done a fantastic job with the architecture, and our landscape architect. I believe our landscape architect will come up and talk to you first about what they've done. Scott Baker was also involved in our previous project, where we actually added to that public park right next to that workforce project that is near Altana in the backside, the little parklet. We added some of our sites, so he helped with that process. So without further ado, I want to introduce Scott Baker, and I would truly appreciate your recommendation. I think it's a fantastic project, and there's a lot at stake for this project, so thank you very much. Sure.
Before I let you go, are there any questions?
I have few questions actually. So the parking or the intersection that you were just mentioning, was that California and Jackson?
Correct.
So currently we're at PM Peak, we're at E, and the project is actually going to have an effect of this intersection to go to an F, from what I see.
That's pre the mitigation.
Okay.
So I can have our traffic engineer answer that also.
So maybe we can just go through the, is it going to be part of your presentation?
Sure. He can answer questions as it relates to the specific, any questions regarding technical traffic issues, I would direct towards him.
Okay. I guess maybe we can wait to the end of the presentation for the questions. I have a few more, but I think it might be answered as you guys are doing the presentation.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Very good.
Where was the parklet? California and what?
So it's on California, the southeast corner of California and Jackson. If you're familiar with the area, there is, which I'm sure you are, there is there's like a chain link fence and some cactuses there. It's actually a vacant site with 3 units at the very back
It's
side.
the property
It's right
across the
here.
street from 247.
So
And what you're proposing is to turn that into a parklet,
yeah, mini park.
but then offset it against your development impact fees and park fees.
Offset it with only the out-of-pocket costs in lieu of paying. So not just in lieu of the park fee in total. Just say, hey, here's how much it costs us to do. We would offer to do all the work with the community, do that. Or if you prefer, we just pay the fee. I mean, it's for us, it's just a lot of extra work, but I think it's worth it, and I think it could make a great project. So that's something we wanted to offer as an option.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, I mean, I see the great benefit with the working with the GUSD as far as yes, they do need a new building, and but here we're looking at by right, you're allowed to build 100 some odd units, and then let's say if this moves forward and you get approved, you're building 283, so something like 2.5 times more. And obviously, I mean, the one that who can do math, I mean, it's a great opportunity. And you are offering to improve the park, but you already have, I mean, you have to pay the fee anyways. But you're saying, okay, we'll do that, out of goodness, that you will participate in the community and all that. What I'm trying to, when I ask the staff this, and I'm trying to ask you, is that you are asking this zone change to satisfy your pocket. What is the city getting in return? I'm not hearing anything from you.
Sure.
That we're, oh man, you know what, we'd like to work with you. Yes, you did a great job building within the SP area, and that's what we concentrate on, and building downtown area. And so thank you for your great job and great work. But when you come out of that specific zone and then trying to work in this residential neighborhood and getting all these incentives, what are you giving us?
So I understand the question. Couple things. So first, as far as what we're doing above and beyond the specific plan, we're doing the park. The optional park is just an option. We are doing almost double the public open space than what is required under the park, the current public open space requirement under the DSP. We're also doing 10% workforce housing, and I can assure you that when you reduce your rents 30 to 50% across 29 units, that is a massive give. And the third thing is, assuming that you decided not to approve this project or recommend this project, it wasn't ultimately approved, and they said, well, you need to live within the current zoning. This exchange doesn't happen. That's the reality. That's why I'm saying this is what is at stake tonight. We cannot justify this under the current zoning, under what it is. It was always assumed that we would be able to get some, to provide a project of this scale with these type of amazing amenities, i.e. more green space, workforce housing, but without the upzoning, call it, this exchange just does not happen. And so the school district remains where they are, and the money that they otherwise would have spent on school programs, resources, and the children of Glendale ends up going into retrofitting a building. So that's the truth of the matter. And so that's why I'm asking today, and that's the benefit at the end of the day. I understand that it's not a typical project, but this is the reality of what we're dealing with and why it's so important for us to get to where we want. And I can assure you that it is a challenging project as is. This is a very, very challenging environment for developers, for getting financing. The markets are changing, and it's not like it was several years ago, especially when we built Altana. I mean, we built that in 2012. The hard costs today are 50% higher than they were then, 50% higher. And any commodity report that is a fact in LA based on all the development. So we think we're adding housing, which hopefully can provide more opportunities for people in Glendale. We're providing workforce housing so that people have the ability to afford housing in downtown. And we're providing this exchange as a partnership with a school district. And I think those are amazing benefits. I believe there's nothing more important than school districts in cities. So that is my personal, I respect, but personally, that is my opinion.
Very good.
Your
Next,
project that you finished, the previous project, is that 100% occupied?
94? And not every project is occupied in Glendale. I can tell you that. It's just the quality of the project. It's a great project.
Most are doing very well.
Yeah, they are doing very well, actually. There's some, there's a lot of projects you just delivered, so some of the vacancies is the ramp up, to your point. Totally agree.
next presentation from the applicant, could we have the traffic consultant? I appreciate it, and I don't mean to insult you, sir, but I have a question burning a hole in my pocket.
Mr. Chairman, John Abagdinian, JB Associates. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
All right, so the applicant, or the applicant just was speaking about the level of service and that there wasn't much of an impact. But one of the intersections that we were just discussing was California and Jackson. There's actually going to be a negative impact on that intersection, especially during PM peak hour. And they mentioned that there's some mitigation that's going to be, so if you could please explain.
Sure. Intersection of Jackson and California existing, when we do an analysis, we do traffic counts at that intersection. We did it in April of this year to see what the conditions are. And it's a four-way intersection. Currently, that intersection, based on traffic engineering guidelines, it is working over capacity. Every four-way stop has a certain capacity. When it reaches that capacity, then you start looking at the delay increases. People have to wait like one at a time to go through the intersection, especially in peak hours. So whether this project traffic gets added to that intersection or not, based on the traffic engineering guidelines that the city also uses. We use California standards. It does meet the requirements for installation of a signal. There's like 8 what we call warrants or requirements. All you need to have satisfy one of those. So therefore, that intersection currently meets it. When the project traffic gets added to it, basically anytime you add more than 3 seconds of delay based on the city's guidelines to an intersection, that only takes about 10 cars to go added to that intersection. That means you have now technically a significant impact. So what we recommended, that we signalize that intersection, that would be a mitigation measure for this project. Once you signalize it, based again on the traffic capacity ratios that the city has, that intersection will be operating at the level of service B. So when we say level of service, A is the best.
You said B?
B.
Okay.
B. Letter B. So A is the best, F is the worst, B is a standard, an ideal level of service. So people who are going to go through that intersection, they will not be exposed to additional delays. It'll be more of a free flow traffic through that intersection compared to what it operates today.
What about Jackson and Wilson? Because this was Jackson.
This is
California.
Jackson at California.
Yeah. What about one block down?
One block down, Luis at California, also existing conditions, does meet the project based on the city's guidelines for significance does not impact that intersection. Again, that 3 second, it's a blink of an eye, but it is 3 seconds. The project adds 1.7 seconds of delay, with just being very technical about it, technically does not impact that intersection. We did recommend, however, that the city, the developer and the city can consider a fair share contribution for a traffic signal at that intersection. Not installing a signal, but a fair share contribution, because this project by itself is not impacting that intersection totally.
Yeah, but no, my question, actually, I am interested in Jackson and Wilson.
Jackson and Wilson already signalized.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Mr. Chair. John, the comment was made that the stop and go takes about 90 seconds per car to clear right now, or after?
It's a total intersection delay, essentially.
But that would be created after the project was built.
Yes.
No.
Now, to mitigate that, to bring it down to the 30 seconds is the work that you're doing, which is the lighting and what have you, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Delay.
What is the delay now?
The delay is right now.
In terms of seconds. I'm just trying to get a grip.
1 second, I'll tell you. Existing delay for Jackson and California, based on our estimate, 74 seconds. So once you add the project,
So it'll even be better than what it is today.
Yeah, it goes up to 78 seconds, let's say. That's when we exceed that 3 second threshold.
But that's now.
That's now. Yeah.
And when we get to that 30-second threshold, that means that you're even improving today's conditions.
Absolutely. Once you signalize a 4-way stop, that is like a ramp metering 1 car at a time, it allows you to have multiple cars go through the intersection. So therefore, it reduces the delay.
May I ask you a question? So did you guys run a traffic model with the numbers to make sure that this was the outcome? Is that how you guys prepared the study?
Yes, what we do, based on the city's traffic study guidelines, we look at the existing conditions, we model that. Then we do an analysis adding the project traffic on top of the existing conditions. Then we also get a list from the planning department on all the related projects that are in the process, that have already been approved or are in the process. So we add that traffic on top of that. Then we'll say in the future, the date that the project will be completed, let's say 2019, what would be the worst condition? We compare it to existing. If it exceeds those thresholds that the city sets, then we say it's a significant impact. In this case, that intersection is a significant impact. We recommend it as signal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions of the applicant?
No, I just have a comment. Memo to the city of Glendale. Why aren't you putting those lights now?
Because it doesn't take that long to go through that intersection.
I didn't ask for a response.
Please, no comments from the gallery. Thank you.
Good evening, Scott Baker with Realm Landscape Architects. I'm not sure whether I'm sort of halftime entertainment at this point or
No, you're
where I
not.
fit into
You're
things.
the main event.
Hopefully, I'm sort of the sorbet between courses, maybe. So, landscape. I think Niels has talked already about the quantity of open space, and I wanted to just frame how we're approaching the open space, both public and private, and what we're looking for to ensure that this is open space that is really authentic to Glendale. I think in every project we start, we try to understand a place, and I think we're very interested in sort of the pedigree of Glendale, and in particular the haciendas and some of the courtyard gardens that characterize that landscape. Oops, forward. But we're also interested in kind of the new Glendale and sort of its penchant for civic buildings, for public spaces, active places for people. It's very much a pedestrian city, and we want to ensure that that really is embedded in the landscape fabric of this project. I think Niels touched on something. The orange on this map are parks, are public open space within this area of Glendale. And what we refer to the neighborhood that this project is proposed in as a park desert. There's very little in the way of open space in this area. It's many, many blocks to achieve open space. So the idea of a new project actually bringing public open space to the city is a very important piece from a city-making point of view. From a touch and feel point of view, we're very interested in really this kind of DNA of open space. And again, this penchant for kind of tactile landscape that has really been the hallmark of Glendale landscapes historically, whether it's tile, whether it's sort of modest water features, whether it's sort of the green landscape. We want to ensure that this is a landscape that is of Glendale when it's manifested. Really kind of three key pieces to the landscape of the project view. One is really the street and the setback landscape, which we see as being a very public face, where really the city meets the project itself, and how we handle that becomes important. There are the courtyards that Niels talked about as well, and these are very much in the spirit of almost the hidden garden, the sort of secret spaces, but how they've been, at least 2 out of 3 of how they've been couched is that they bump up against the public landscape, so there's this idea of a kind of a shared space. And then the third piece is, of course, the amenity deck that sits atop the parking structure. So the overall project itself, you can see the building itself in plans are punctuated by these green rooms, as well as a very sort of verdant street edge. And I just want to quickly walk through each one of those component parts for you. One is the courtyard off of Jackson. Again, the idea of the first third or quarter of it being a public accessible landscape, and then as we move deeper into the courtyard, a private space in towards the residential units itself. But we're very much one of the sort of landscape garden, the landscape courtyard, with color and texture and scent. An internal courtyard as well, very much kind of the hidden garden that's accessed via a passageway from Wilson Street, but really sort of surrounded by residential units on a very intimate sort of almost neighborhood space for the residents. The amenity deck up on the rooftop, which of course is really kind of supports in some regards, the social life of the project, and puts the pool and kind of the energy, if you will, up above the roof where there's no disturbance to the adjacent properties, and it really becomes sort of the best sun exposure. And then finally, the piece I think we're most proud of, and it's this idea of the street park and what happens really at the corner of Wilson and Jackson. And the idea that a space really needs to be of a certain scale so that it can be enjoyable, that it wants to sort of have an experience for both the public and for the residents, and it wants to be highly flexible as well. And so, again, a green space that Niels talked about that wraps the project and really holds the corner, that it's visible from both street frontages, that it has a sort of green ground plane of open lawn and landscape areas, but also shade canopy, trees that really add to the urban forest of Glendale. And as I mentioned, a very sort of lush, tactile understory of landscape. Why the space is important, and the screen is sort of stretching and compressing a little bit, but the idea of flexibility, I realize not everybody can read this, but it is of a scale that one could do a small, potentially a small farmer's market in, or a small craft show, or something along those lines. It is the type of space that you could actually have a movie in the park, a modest sort of public event that would bring sort of activity to this corner. Or it could be something where it's more about food trucks and relaxation and something like this. The idea of a private development delivering a public asset is the idea here. So a series of views very quickly. You've seen a couple of these when Neil spoke about it, but the corner of Wilson and Jackson and the idea of an urban green space, another view with the allée of trees that frame that space and create shade, pulling back a little bit and just again understanding kind of the scale of that landscape and what happens where the building meets the street with this landscape zone as a buffer, if you will, looking from the Jackson Street side. And then a couple of other views of, again, a consistent tree canopy and foundation planting that rings the project really where the building hits the street, doing so not in a sort of hard urban way, but really allowing landscape to be the mitigating factor, which is very much the DNA of the adjacent neighborhoods, and allowing landscape and lawn to really be kind of this softer interface with the streetscape and the entry into the courtyard. And with that, I'll pass it to...
May I ask you a question?
Certainly.
How big is the street park?
How big the street park is? I'm forgetting the dimensions. It's 45 by... It's 45 feet deep on the Wilson Street side.
You should all be ashamed of yourselves, especially all of you.
Excuse me, please.
You're
Hey, what?
displacing-
Ma'am, please, I need you to stay quiet. No, I need you, officer, please escort this lady out. Please escort this
Can
lady
we
out.
request that you,
Please leave.
there's an opportunity for everyone to speak.
The answer to your question is...
We don't need more luxury condos. We need housing for working people.
What? We do a recess over there.
Ladies and gentlemen, next time we have a disturbance like that, I will call it, call security. Please, let's all work together, have our opinions heard. She may have had some wise words to say, but that was not the way, nor the place, nor the time to do it. So please, let's work together, get this process underway. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, if I might just add to that, we would request that the civility of the meeting be maintained. We will provide warnings in the event that the warning is not heeded and the meeting is continuously disrupted. That could rise to the level of a request to have the police officers escort someone from the room. We don't want that to happen. We would prefer everyone to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting. But we do have legal authority to proceed through that process. It is a Penal Code violation 403 to incessantly disrupt a meeting, and under our Glendale Municipal Code, Section 20.100, it is a misdemeanor as well. So
Very good.
under both those code sections, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, continue.
From back a sidewalk to face of building, it's roughly 45 feet or so, and then along Wilson Street, it's approximately 200 feet long in terms of its total length. We're a little shorter than that, obviously, along the Jackson frontage, including the arcade, though it's probably in that same range of 45, 50 feet deep total.
All right. See, you were at the halftime entertainment. You were the main event.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thrilled to be so. Thank you.
Now we have the architect.
Hi, I'm Tobin Semenk with Architects Orange. I'm going to be covering a little bit of the technical side, just very quickly, of some of the things for this type of product.
A little closer, yeah.
Now, is it on?
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So here we have on, as you see from Jackson, there is one entry to the parking structure that is 5 stories above grade and 2 levels below for the parking. The leasing office is located in this location here with mail. What Scott talked about was the double volume space of a public amenity here on the corner going to an arcade and out to the park area. Again, this is a 5-story residential building with some 4-story drops. And I'll show you where those are located in a moment. First, I wanted to also mention that in our development, in taking a look at the surrounding adjacencies, surrounding properties, we wanted to be consistent to the existing heights. And as you can see, we've located and noted some of those that are surrounding our site, both on Jackson as well as Kenwood and across in the DSP zone for along the south. So you have 60, 55, 45, and we've also noted where we are 53 feet approximately, 43 feet where we drop it down to 4 stories. And again, that is located here. You'll see in the colored portion, those are the 4-story portions of our building along Jackson and then along Wilson and also along Kenwood. Again, it was mentioned that we are exceeding the public open space as well as the overall open space for the project. Scott went through these elevations previously. I just wanted to make a few highlights from an architectural standpoint. Here you can see where we have stepped back the building. You have a 4-story portion here, and then this gives the 5th level a private balcony. We've done that actually on the 3 sides, on Jackson, on Wilson, as well as on Kenwood. Here you see it along the Wilson elevation at these locations. That's also a step back so that it presents a 4-story facade along the street, and then it steps back to the 5, giving the 5th level a private patio or balcony. This is again looking north on Jackson. The Jackson courtyard also shows that we have a 4-story portion here on this face as well before it steps back to a 5-story beyond.
Very good. Thank you very much.
First, I want to say, with regard to the young woman who just left, that we, and it sounds like her father lives in that 9-unit building. I personally called every resident in that building. I got callbacks from some of them and didn't get callbacks from others. But our goal is to work with them over the next 18 months.
What's your name, sir?
I'm sorry, my name is Will Sipes. I'm with Carmel
Thank you.
Partners. Sorry. Our goal is to work with them over the next 18 months because this project does have a long timeline based on the timing of the school district moving to find other housing that best suits their needs. And, you know, my thought when she said that immediately went to, you know, if you truly have a person who's 96 living in this housing here, to find some true low-income housing in the city where they would be better suited long-term. So we are committed to working with those residents. We've reached out. We're committed to going above and beyond what the city requires for assisting in the relocation. So I just want to make that point, and I look forward to meeting with her and finding a way where we can truly create a better situation. The comment I wanted to make was, or the closing comment was around the conditions recommended by staff, and we appreciate staff has worked very hard on this, and I think have made some changes to it that you see in the current plans that have made it a better project. As far as, and I'm going to speak specifically to design review condition number 1, we request a modification of that condition in a couple ways. One, relief from the condition along Wilson. So condition number 1, do you want me to read it to be clear what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so condition number 1 is reduce the overall mass of the project by providing a 4-story structure while allowing for fifth-story units if they are not visible from the adjacent streets. We would request relief from that along Wilson due to the adjacency to the DSP, and also to the fact that we're providing some additional open space along Wilson, which I think reduces the sort of, or allows for a higher building on that, at that location. We'd also request a clarification that in terms of visibility, we're talking about a straight-on view from standing on the sidewalk on the other side, just so we have something specific and it isn't too subjective. And then to allow that in a location where a building is 15 feet or less from a public sidewalk, or more from a public sidewalk, that condition also not apply, which allows us, again, some relief along these setback areas, specifically the park as it comes along Wilson and then curves a little bit onto Jackson. So again, we're not pushing back entirely on the condition, just accepting some clarifications. In terms of the setback requirement, we would request relief from that condition. The 12-foot setback. Our setback varies across Jackson and Wilson and Kenwood. We also, in the last 24 hours, have heard a lot from the community about some other concerns that we hope to address as the project evolves, and we think being strict about this 12-foot setback would reduce our ability to provide that relief in other places that may be more meaningful to the neighbors. And so that's on the design review conditions. And then finally on the recommended terms, which relate to the development agreement, and I won't necessarily read that whole thing because it's a rather long term. And the bottom line is that this goes away if we haven't commenced construction within 3 years of the rezone being effective. We would like to either tie that to 3 years that we be submitted and within plan check in 3 years, or that 3 years go from the date the district moves out. We're requesting this because this isn't a project where as soon as we get the entitlement, if we do get it, we can go full speed ahead to building because we are waiting to accommodate the district and the process it's going to take for them to move. So it would just be a slight modification on that timing to allow us a little bit of a buffer.
Okay. 1 second. So with that, the city staff, have you discussed this matter with the city staff prior to this hearing?
No, they have not.
They have not. Okay. So how can we do this on the fly, or how would you suggest we do it?
Actually, I was wondering if we can leave this to the end and then make it part of the motion.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. How would you make it a part of a motion if the city staff has not agreed to it? Because I suspect that all three of these items have some thought behind them. There's a good reason why they're there. I'm not, without prejudice to any future vote that I may give. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes. You're thinking in terms of, for instance, design review item number 2, provide a minimum 12-foot setback from the property line along the Jackson Street facade. Is that malleable? Is that...
Mr. President, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what I would ask, we haven't had a time. We can whisper back here, but that may not be the most effective. If you'd like to continue on with the hearing, give us a chance to put our heads together, and we can come back.
Very good. Then in that case, if you're gonna have a little backroom meeting, let's make sure that we are all on the same page.
Mr. Chair, I think he meant to continue the case in some other, because even if the staff reviews and then I guess what he's asking for, we ourselves have to also chance to review the thing, what he's requesting, and then decide on that. For personally, what is coming up right now is a new thing. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I cannot make decision on this thing without staff reviewing this. So if that's what's going to happen, this case needs to be continued.
I can think of at least 2 other ways of moving forward with this without continuing the hearing. Least of which is to basically speaking of main events, punting it to the city council and saying that by the time it hits their dais, this matter will have been resolved between the applicant and the city. We can definitely discuss the matter around these three items.
I would also just point out that the plans in front of you and the plans you're reviewing do not yet reflect those conditions that staff laid on.
Of course.
So it would be a change either way, which would require some redesign to respond to.
So if the applicant and if the city staff need to, this matter, these three items need to be hammered out between them between now and when this matter goes before the city council. Otherwise, and if you can do it, by all means, do it. Otherwise, I will have to continue the matter.
Well, Mr. Chairman, sitting here today, hearing them, we can't recommend that you move forward with these revisions. We don't know what they look like. We may be able to craft a motion for you that allows some flexibility for them to provide an alternate to these conditions for the city council. I'm not sure how much that will help you in your deliberation, but we can certainly do that.
Give me a second. Yes.
So the timing on this project, as far as bringing it to council, is actually quite important based on the exchange timing. As I was mentioning, there's some very critical dates. So we certainly would want to avoid a continuance. One thing, I'm not sure from a legal matter, but if it took approving them with the existing conditions and then allowing, when we bring it back to council, to work with staff to alter those conditions based on the feedback from the neighborhood and whatnot, maybe that's another way we could do it. So we're just trying to put them out there. We recently received the conditions. We literally had meetings the last couple days that have given us the reason to do those. Like, for example, the school move out period. The last thing we want to be is not aligned with their timing to move out and feel the pressure on that. So we want to give them as much time as possible. So again, if there is a possibility that we can work with staff between now and the council hearing, and the way to do it is to approve it with the current conditions in place, but we have the ability to do that, then I'm okay with that also. I just wanted to put those out there.
And I need the terminology to be straight. We're not approving anything. We're just recommending.
No, that's right. That is correct. You're just making a recommendation to the council.
So that we can recommend the application as is, but being mindful of the recommendations of the city staff. And the same thing that you're asking us to do, and you're asking us not to do, the city council can do or not do.
That is correct.
So we're good? All right.
Mr. Chair, we are being asked to adopt, after deliberation, the staff is recommending for us to adopt resolutions. These are not binding, right?
They're recommendations.
Okay.
One other thing, Mr. Chair, depending on how the outcome of the meeting is, this actually might be affected, the recommendations. If let's say the project actually doesn't get approved and the zone hasn't changed, they would automatically have to reduce the size if they're planning to continue the project, and so on and so forth. So I suggest maybe we'll listen to the folks that are here and then maybe go in deliberation, and then at that point we'll be able to kind of look at the recommendations that the staff has brought to our attention to see how we want to proceed.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, could you, we were conferring, and so I missed that last part where you were talking about our recommendation. Could you review that for me again?
So we have an application as is. We have the city staff who have made 3 specific recommendations, right? Now, what I'm suggesting, given that we seem to be at an impasse whereby the applicant is asking that they be relieved of the recommendations you've made, and you seem to be the immovable object in the sense that you're saying this is a great plan except 1, 2, 3. All I'm saying is, instead of continuing the matter, which some commissioners want, but the applicant does not, what we can do is, if we are of the mind to move this along, we do so as is, but informing the city council that any consideration that it makes in this regard ought to be made within the context of your 3 recommendations. Remember, they can take, you are recommending something to us to recommend to the city. You might as well cut out the middleman and make your recommendation. Right? In the meantime, the applicant gets what it wants. The public gets to basically go on the record and say what it is about this project that bothers it and what it is about this project that they're excited about, whether parts of the citizenry or part of the city establishment. And we can have that on the record, and then we can have a better, more comprehensive hearing before the city council. That's all I'm saying.
May I just add one thing, Chairman Manukian? Planning commissioners' duty is to kind of, as experts in planning matters, to give their expert opinion to council. The council members might not necessarily know about the planning concerns or conditions because they might not be experts in the field. So we should be able to give a recommendation for the best of the neighborhood, looking at how the growth of the neighborhood will be in the future, 5 years, 10 years, so on and so forth. So I think it is actually important for us to be able to give a recommendation to council that we are their right hand when it comes to planning matters. So we should be able to give them a recommendation on any planning matter. And I think they rely on us to be able to make a decision knowing that we know the matter or we understand the planning concerns that come along the city and how it will help the city develop in the future. Just wanted to put it out there. That's kind of what we're doing here. But with what you said, I think we can probably kind of try to see what would work best and give recommendations to the council and see how they want to proceed regarding this project.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would say that, and if I understood you correctly, that you would recommend, if you decided to recommend, you'd recommend the project as it is with a recommendation council, look at it within the context of staff's conditions. We believe that the project, and this is our recommendation to you, should have those conditions in place with your recommendation that goes to the council. So it's a little bit of a nuance, I think, but I want this body to be clear that the staff believes those conditions are important if this project moves forward, and that the design that ultimately comes out of that gets tied to the zone change.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
Today's recommendation by the staff was made to this commission based on those facts. And without the review of the new items that's been introduced, and without their formal recommendation for us to consider, I don't know how, in conscious mind, we can make a decision here and make a recommendation.
The way I see this is, if I may, Chairman Manukian, the way I see this is, again, depending on what the outcome of today's meeting is or how we vote on this matter, this comments or this recommendations might not even apply. So I'll leave it to you to make the decision, but I think we should listen to the public and see what they have to say.
What is your timeline? You told us, the applicant told us that the timeline of this deliberation matters.
So the timeline is we expect to go to City Council in late January. The exchange is supposed to close in early February, which is why the timing is so important. And so, again, if there is if the option is to recommend with the current conditions and then work with the public, and we come back to City Council and say, here are the changes, then they can consider those. I I think your proposal of saying these conditions, we take these into account, we recommend these conditions. That said, it allows us to work and then work with planning over the next 30 days because we do believe that in the philosophy and spirit of these conditions are very legitimate, and we agree with them. Just slight nuances where we don't want to have a technicality that prevents us from responding and reacting to something that the public would like us to do.
Okay, what is the earliest that we can continue this matter to within the month of December?
Well, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Can we
The city
continue this
council-
to next Wednesday?
That I got to put in my staff. I don't know.
Well, find out. The problem is that these three items directly affect the pictures behind us. Despite the fact that you didn't have to bring them, they were brung. And if the recommendations are implemented, those things are going to change. Your entire, and I apologize, but your entire selling of this project was predicated on certain things that will change if these three conditions are implemented. And that makes the deliberation, it's almost like we're building a house on sand. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's why I'm looking for a date to continue this, a date certain to continue this to.
In terms of whether or not we could have a meeting next week, I mean, you can schedule a special meeting on Wednesday. That's normally your time. However, the issue that you're really discussing is related to design review. And design review falls under the purview of the council. So I don't think it's necessarily critical when you're doing a recommendation at this time. If there's a gray area, perhaps you don't have a recommendation on that one issue, that's design review. The one, I'm just throwing that out there in terms of making everybody's timeline work to get a recommendation to council. You might want to consider that.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
1 second. That's fine. That covers arguably two of the items. But what about the development agreement term? By all means.
If I could address that, Mr. Chair, the development agreement condition has to do with when the term, the length of the term and when that is triggered. So that is simply a choice in timing as opposed to a substantive component of the overall scheme of the project, the way that pertaining to the zoning, the general plan amendment, or even to the design review. It's just an issue of timing that can be adjusted.
So it can be left to the city council to push the pin on the timeline and say, we're going to go with this date. Okay.
Yes.
So I was right. But, Commissioner Astorian, you had something to say?
No, this is, we're all familiar with Bitcoin and blockchain technology. This is getting more complicated by the minute, more complicated than blockchain technology. Look, we can't approve something piecemeal. You're asking us to adopt resolutions in which it directly affects a zone change and a variance. We don't even have findings on a variance. That's what we are going to be discussing pretty soon. So now we are being asked, well, the staff's recommendation of the 12-foot and then the design review and so forth may not apply. Why is it in front of us? Why were you asking us to approve if it's not within our purview? Why were you asking us to approve something that has to do with design review board? Right now, all of that is meshed into your resolutions, into the agreements. If the gentleman has accepted that if we go forward in its as-is basis, then we can continue this. And I believe he said, I don't have a problem with that. Now, what he does after that, between him and the city council, it's between them. That passes our goalpost, so to say. And am I correct? You want us to go forward in its as-is condition, as it's been presented to us. We're not going to make you any promises.
Right.
What's going to happen
at the next,
after
right.
the decision-making tonight.
Yeah,
Is that okay with you?
that is okay with us.
So we just wasted about 20 minutes. If that's okay with them, let's go forward.
I don't think we wasted 20 minutes. Like you said, it was in front of us, and I don't necessarily agree that this is a good idea for the applicant's sake, but nevertheless. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go into the
I
public.
have one question.
Go ahead.
Can we ask him how much he's going to?
The applicant, Mr.
One question for you. Do you have any estimated value that how much the whole construction is going to cost you? What is the value of the whole estimated value for this property that you're going to give us?
Over $100 million, I would say.
$100 million?
I would say. I don't know as far as hard costs. There's a lot of fees, the full part.
And then what you're getting in return as a swap, how much, did you have an estimated value for that? I mean, how much you're giving, how much you're getting? Estimated.
I'm not sure I understand the
Let's say
question.
you're getting a building, which is the Glendale Unified School District building, the way I understood, and all the properties next to it. And then you're giving that property on 425 Colorado, right? Do you have any values that how much that's going to cost, how much value you're getting?
It's all the details are in the public documents as it relates to the school board exchange. The purchase price for the new building that we have, the office building, is $29 million. So that gives you an idea.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we're going to go into the public comment portion of our special meeting. Each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes to speak. And we have, as I estimated, over 25 speakers. Very good? Okay. Number one. Number two, I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. But, so, Catherine Jersey.
Gerasi.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Kathy Yurka. So first time. That's okay. I live in Glendale, and I have an interest in the quality of life in my city, as well as thoughtful planning and design. And I urge you to vote no on this project. The DSP should not be allowed to migrate farther north. Promises were made that density would be concentrated where it belongs, and that's downtown. Concessions regarding height and density were granted to projects based on those promises. This strikes me as just another luxury project that we don't need, with insignificant public benefits, that nonetheless provides less restrictive zoning privileges to a single developer. For years, planning staff have been working on the South Glendale Community Plan, which is almost ready for public review. It proposes 3 alternatives that include zoning and density modifications in various areas. None of those options includes increasing density north of Wilson. So this project remains high-density residential in all 3 plans. If it were a good idea, if it were good planning, to increase density at the GUSD site sometime within the next 25 years, which is the approximate lifespan of the community plan, that alternative would have been explored in it. I happen to think that the Altana is one of several developments on Central Avenue that proves what a mistake it was to cut the Planning Commission and the DRB out of the downtown development process. And I agree with what was said, that you are here to make recommendations as planning experts, and I think that's an invaluable part of this process. So please have something to say about moving the 12-foot wall back. Thank you.
Thank you. No applause, please. Thank you. Because this is not a show. Elizabeth Vitanza, please.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Vitanza, and I'm a Glendale resident and a parent of a child in GUSD. I'm opposed to the developer's proposal to rezone and reclassify this site. I have no objection to a property swap, but GUSD's ambition to relocate should not be an excuse to allow a block-long project whose size, scale, and massing are way too big for this neighborhood, or anywhere in the existing downtown specific area for that matter. I am also a strong supporter of affordable housing. 29 workforce units will help people who make over $100,000 a year. And I have news for you. Those folks are saving up so they can go buy a house in Glendale Park. They're not going to rent a $2,500 a month apartment at that price. The city's own analysis presented just last week to City Council shows that our most dire affordability problem is for households making under $35,000 a year. This project is contributing far too little for what it expects in return. My son and his classmates are going to inherit a Glendale that they cannot afford to live in. It is inherently unfair for the city to radically alter its planning strategies and policies for a single developer or for GUSD. If GUSD needs the city's or the community's help to deal with financial problems, then it should say so. But the way this project is moving forward, as though this proposal were really just ordinary planning business, another exception to the rules to get a project built, belies the dynamics at play here. There needs to be an honest discussion with all of the stakeholders, including the people who need the low-income housing. And I think you can see behind me that they have a lot to say. This may be a matter better settled at the ballot than in a few hearings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have Richard Garner, please? Okay. One name I got right. Anush Sarkisian. Hello.
Good evening. I'm the owner of the commercial property across the street from the GUSD building, and I just I'm here to tell you that I don't have any problem with this building, and you know, I like to see new development in my area, and I have no problem with that.
Thank you very much. Did Mr. Garner come back? No. May I have Sam Manukian? No relation.
Hi, I'm Sam Manukian, and I'm a lifelong resident of this city and a proud product of the Glendale Unified School District. And I hope I can clarify some of these issues as far as what is in it for the city. Well, Glendale Unified is one of the biggest components of our city. And make no doubt about it, whatever affects this development affects the final outcome. Now, there seems to be also a misconception that this developer is here trying to get an advantage on density. This all comes about with, as Niels Carter presented, a $30 million, $29 million property that there has to be a balance between what they're giving and what they're getting in return. So, and the workforce housing also component came from the city manager's office. That's how this dialogue started. It was not brought up by the developer. This was a dialogue that started, and I truly see a benefit that our teachers' ability to get a 40%, 50% discount on the rent is an advantage. You might not see it that way, but our teachers, believe it or not, deserve every help that they can get. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Passarella.
Can I defer my time to someone else at a later time when their name comes up?
Sure. Can I have that name in advance? Just, yeah. Oh, it's Mike. Okay.
It's going to be 2 minutes. Huh?
Grant Mikias, or Michaels. I'm sorry.
No problem. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Grant Michaels. While I am involved in many organizations, I'm speaking here tonight as an individual. The downtown specific plan was a long, thoughtful process that identified where bonuses, density, where we wanted development. This process right now is going through at the same time that the South Glendale Community Plan is going through. That again is a long, thoughtful, thought-through process. I oppose the general plan amendment because it is counter to the larger zoning and planning developments of the city. This is specific to this project and focuses the attention here. It is drawing attention, and it has not been thoroughly explained whether the questions that were raised tonight by the developer proposing changes, or, as you said, it is a project on sand. With the other issue of the review authority, you are creating sections in the South Glendale Community Plan that are still falling under the DRB authority for review. You are creating sections within that neighborhood that are bound by three sides of what would be the downtown specific plan, essentially creating little pockets where limits of R1250 would exist, bounded by three sides of the downtown specific plan. Speaking as the president of the Homeowners Coordinating Council, or the Montrose Verdugo City Neighborhood Association, we have discussed this issue and we oppose the general plan amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Eva Gabor.
Hello, thank you for hearing me, and thank you everyone for being here. I've been born and raised in this neighborhood, and right now represent probably about 90 plus people as a property owner of several parcels adjacent to the area. One thing that I'd like for all of you to consider, please, is the airspace. Right now, everything as I look over from Louise Street, and I own a condominium at the 234 North Kenwood, I can see the sunrise, I can see the moonrise, I can see the San Gabriel Mountains. And we all would lose that view if there is some 5 to 6 story thing going up. Where's the sun? What about our property values? They'll go down. We're owners. These are apartment dwellers. And you're also looking at not only the traffic of the extra 600 plus cars. When you multiply the number of units that you want to put in here times 2 people, some people have 3 in a family, you know, that's several cars. And I know that whole block, that whole area from Maryland to Kenwood to, Louise to Kenwood. You've already built how many units in that whole area? There is not enough parking right now for the residents, number one, but also for their visitors, including, the YMCA. You have so many people that are there that use the YMCA that, also use that area. And I'm just saying thank you very much for hearing me. And I'm sure that if you could please not pass this project.
Ask you a question, ma'am. You're not against any kind of development. You're particularly against the density as this development, correct?
I am against the rezoning. I am completely against that. I believe that everything should stay south of Wilson as it has been proposed. And when you look at such a high density as this, this is the wrong place for that project. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have Neda Farid Farouhmand, please?
Good evening. My name is Neda Farouhmand. I am Glendale Council PTA President. I represent 26 vibrant and active PTAs. I have 213 unit site leaders, and we have, at this count, 11,693 active PTA members. Essentially, I serve at the pleasure of 26,242 students. Our mission is to promote the welfare and children of youth at home, in the community, and in our schools. We work tirelessly to engage and promote collaboration in education with our children and youth. I'm really here today to talk about the promise. Commissioner Lee asked, what's in it for the city? And I will tell you that I made a promise to my stakeholders that we would have an engagement center, that we would have a place where our families could come and be received and access our educational, the components that they need for their children's education, to access administrators, to be able to handle everything from soup to nuts. So if they need to see nutrition, dietary, if they need counseling, all of that being housed in one place is a wonderful opportunity for our parents. Everything you will hear today from both sides will be about the business of the matter. They will be about homeowners and their properties and people regarding zoning and taxes. It's all business. What I am here to talk about is what's good for kids, what's good for families, and that's a piece that you can't put a dollar value to. Stakeholders need access to the district administration. They need to be able to park. Earlier when there was the discussion on the parking lot, I for one park on the red line in our parking lot. I can do that. I can't have our stakeholders do that. They need access. Is my time up? Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Are you representing the association PTA, or are you here?
Yes, Council PTA. We discussed it at our last meeting, and it was discussed that there would be this meeting today, and that I would discuss the benefits for us and building the engagement center that we've promised our stakeholders.
So you already
which
took the
is,
survey and
yes,
voted on it.
and that is our stakeholders. It is the norm now. Having an engagement center is the norm. If you look at Arcadia, if you look at state PTA, right now engagement is a state priority. You cannot engage people if they don't have a space to come to. Our welcome center is a hallway now because the district building is overcrowded.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. That's why I had my hand up. So,
I apologize.
The engagement center is going to be at the new location for the GUSD building?
Yes, because
and
right
you
now
don't
we
have,
don't have. Right now, we had a very small office, and then we were moved to another office because obviously the other needs that are more pressing than PTA needs in the administrative offices. We were given another space, but spaces need to be user-friendly. You go to the Getty Museum, there's a wide awning inviting you in. If your space is in the very, very back of the building in what was a copy room, you're not going to be able to engage people. You're not going to bring your foster, your homeless youth in. You're not going to bring people who don't speak English and engage them and help integrate them into the community. Okay. You need a space for that. Thank you very much for hearing me.
thank you very much. May I have Stacy Toy, please? She's what?
She had to leave.
Oh. Oh, speaking of leaving. Did Richard Gardner ever come back? No? Okay.
Left.
May I have Talin Arsenian, please?
Chairperson Manukian, members of the Commission, staff, GUSD family, and community members. I'm Taline Arsenian, the president of the Glendale Teachers Association, and I too have the permission of my board of directors to be here to speak on behalf of 1,300 educators who serve over 26,000 students of Glendale. I'm here to speak in support of this project. Just as teachers need a classroom environment conducive to student learning, our district office must be conducive to functioning in a capacity that meets the operational needs of all of its departments and every single public school throughout this city. Over 30 schools rely on our admin building to function to full capacity in a way that will support student instruction and success, as well as the social and emotional needs of our students. Our Glendale families are relying on us to serve our students, and we must deliver the support necessary. The size and condition of our admin building has not met our needs for some time now. The building lacks square footage and usable space, forcing us to rent elsewhere. Costly retrofitting and updating is required, as the building, as Netta mentioned, is no longer meeting our needs and has aged and needs major repair. This property transfer is the most cost-effective way to assure the admin building functions to full capacity. The proposed building will bring professional development and training under one roof. Currently, we have no space to come together. This will allow for educators all over the city to have a single location to convene and participate in professional development and training and collaboration to better meet the needs of our students. I encourage you to support this project. I'd like to thank the Commission and the developer for working together to help bring this to fruition. GUSD leaders and staff have been working on this for over a year. We all have an obligation to our Glendale community to assure our public schools have all of the tools necessary to educate our kids to the highest level possible. A full functioning district office is necessary. By approving this project, you are doing your part to contribute to the success of our school district, which will benefit our kids and the future of our Glendale community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I have Naria Kasabian, please?
Good evening.
My name is Nadia Kasabi, and I am the principal of R.D. White Elementary School and a resident of Glendale. We have over 900 students enrolled at R.D. White. I also have some members of my staff and my families here as well, and we're the closest school to both the city of Glendale here as well as the newly proposed district offices. 425 East Colorado, the proposed location for the property exchange, is less than a mile away from R.D. White. I tell you this because it is walking distance from my school. I have families that live in the neighborhood, and being so close to the district office is a huge benefit. The proposed new building will give us space to build a parent center, which will be an excellent resource for our parents and families to access technology, attend trainings, and meet in person with district leaders. This is very important to me as a school principal, because R.D. White does not have the space, does not have the capacity to have a parent center. As a parent center is something that our families, our PTA, our foundation has always wanted, a central location to gather and help support our schools. 425 East Colorado offers us this opportunity, while our current district office does not. I have families that do not have access to technology at home. How wonderful would it be when a parent picks up their child from school, they can stop by the new district offices so that their child can use a computer, have access to Wi-Fi, and the safety and comfort of the district's parent center. Many of our families now go over to the Glendale Central Library and use their computers, which is a little bit further away from us. So I ask you to help support our students at R.D. White Elementary School and the Glendale Unified School District. Strong students will result in strong schools, a strong community, and a strong Glendale. Please support the Carmel Partners Project so our building exchange can go through and help my families with the Parent Center. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have Karen Stegman, please?
Good evening. I don't have a fancy prepared speech, but I do want to talk to you. I am the Glendale Schools Management Association president this year, so I'm again in support of the Carmel Partners Project. I wanted to talk about parking because parking's an issue now in the area, as the residents here have talked about. And every time we have a principals meeting or a professional development, the streets around our district office are impacted. Also, the Ralph's parking lot, the areas around, as everybody has brought up parking, we all know that's an issue. The opportunity to move to the new building on Colorado will provide all the parking for all those people that take up the space along the streets and in the area, and I think that that can be a benefit in the long term for the parking piece. And the new building, it sounds like it has more parking, but that's an issue for the professionals to take care of. Also, it provides us to have all of our departments in the same building, and I know this is about Glendale Unified, the school district, but having everybody in the same building means we can collaborate and create a better school district without having to drive over to this location for the facilities department and this location for nutrition services and this location for whatever other departments are out there, because we are kind of scattered right now. As was already mentioned by Netta and by Talene, we have things all over the place, and we'd like to be able to be a unified school district in a unified building.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Kelly King, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kelly King, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Educational Services for the Glendale Unified School District. And I'm scary to say this is my 28th year working in GUSD, and I've definitely seen the evolution and the impact that community as well as the services of the school district has in the building of the administration center. A couple of my departments are not located in our building. So besides the loss of efficiency of leadership as well as services to parents, if you need to go to the offices for our early education extended learning programs because you need to apply for or have questions about state subsidized preschool or subsidized child care programs and need to work with the supervisors, the office staff, you have to go down the street to offices that we lease and pay for those leases monthly to the expense of the department services directly for students. If you need to go to our teaching and learning department and talk, as our teachers mentioned, talk to our leadership for professional development for our new teacher induction, you have to go to Pacific Avenue Educational Center, which is off of Pacific Avenue, because that isn't in our district office. If you need to talk to, as our PTA council president mentioned, our PTA is literally in a copy room. So besides this building really giving efficiencies for leadership, it also gives efficiencies for our parents. We made sure that this building is located next to bus routes. It's centrally located in the community. It is large enough for our facilities to actually serve, and we very much ask for your support of this project.
Thank you very much. Stephen Dickinson, please.
Good evening. Steve Dickinson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Glendale Unified School District. So Dr. King touched on a couple of financial aspects on the expense side. You've heard a couple of benefits about this part of the transaction of GUSD getting this other building. I'm going to focus on one that's very unique. So everyone knows that funding for education is inadequate in education. This building exchange gives us a very unique and rare opportunity for school districts to actually generate some revenue. The new building is slightly larger than we need, and we could continue to receive some revenue for that to help maintain our excellent programs and staff in our school district. Thank you.
I have a question for the John. I'm sorry. Generating revenue, can you expand on that?
So the new building at Colorado is 7 floors. We're planning to just occupy the top 5 floors. Several floors are just parking, but we're planning to be able to leave the tenants in the 6th and 7th floors.
So that's the additional revenue that you'll be generating.
Correct.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Chang, just one more. When was the last time that GUSD asked for and got a bond that was financed by Glendale residents?
Measure S, I believe, was passed in 2004? 2001.
Okay.
But just, oh, I'm sorry. Just to be clear, the acquisition, the whole exchange process does not affect our general fund or use Measure S funds.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
One second.
Yeah, actually, it's all on the same line as Commissioner Historian. I was a little surprised when you said revenue generating because everybody was just coming up to talk about the benefits of this building being able to offer to students. And if you have 5 levels that you'll be using for the district and you have 2 extra levels, you know, I expect you to provide some more service-oriented for student enhancement or student activities, after-school activities, and things like that. It really surprised me when you said you will rent it out for revenue purposes. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Any idea of what is the estimated value of that revenue, let's say on an annual basis? Do you have any numbers?
Based on what we've seen, a little over $2 a square foot in rent revenue currently. I think each floor is about 26,000 square feet. So it could be approaching $1 million a year.
$1 million.
For those top 2 floors.
But if you needed the square footage to run some activities or some programs, you would?
Long term, of course, we'll own the whole building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
May I have Tony Barrios, please?
Good evening. I am Tony Barrow, Executive Director of Planning, Development, and Facilities, and I speak on behalf of the building. And I can tell you that the building right now is not healthy. It is a building that lacks fire sprinklers. It needs several ADA upgrades in which the cost would have to be burdened by the district. The elevators are outdated, need a lot of work on those. And as you have heard, there's a lot of parking issues. Not only are the parking issues when people are trying to find parking, but when they are vacant and there's nobody there, it is unsupervised. Several nights or several mornings we wake up to find a lot of loitering that has been happening overnight and affecting the neighborhood there. We find bottles of alcohol, bottles of people that have been using medical marijuana, things of that nature. So it's a real detriment that we cannot supervise that parking lot. We cannot actually secure the parking lot versus in the new building, it'll be an actual secured parking lot where we don't have to worry about loitering. It also has an outdated HVAC system in which literally it takes specialists to come in and help us repair that unit on pretty much a quarterly basis. The expansion into the new building will essentially help us bring all the programs together and provide the additional parking that we do need, and overall create a better district administration office for everyone to be working and focus more on educating the students rather than how hot it is, or whether or not they can even find parking, or whether or not they can even access some of the restrooms when they are physically disabled temporarily. As an example, when somebody breaks their legs, it's difficult for them to go into the restrooms. So I thank you, and I am a proponent of this project.
Thank you very much, sir. Winfred Robertson, please.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Winfred Robertson. I'm a Glendale resident and also the very proud superintendent of the Glendale Unified School District. I believe that strong schools equal a strong community, and parents of 26,000 students, community members, and partners access our building each year. They expect and they deserve excellent schools, excellent services, and we want to fulfill that promise for the tax dollars that are spent. Approving the Carmel project will ensure that your and mine, our local school district, continues to provide excellent services and resources for the students and families that come and commit to us. Supporting GUSD moves its new building. Actually, I believe it frees up space, parking space for the residents, because we won't have 50 to 100 cars looking for space around the perimeters. Moreover, it gives us parking space, and you've heard that mentioned as an argument. Again, strong schools and community require increased engagement, as you heard from our PTA president. Our new building gives us a space for that parent and community center, which will provide a better concentration of resources and services to our families. The potential to lease space in the new building will help us address our issues of solvency and direct dollars to our classrooms. And I do want to specify that, because dollars that are received are dollars that go to our classrooms. This is a benefit to the entire community. Your approval of this project allows GUSD to meet employee safety needs, reduces our overhead, generates revenue, increases our community engagement, creates greater opportunities for collaboration and professional growth, reduces parking issues, and ultimately it's a seed planted towards stronger schools and a stronger community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Nairi Nahapetian, please.
Good evening, Chair Manukian and commissioners. I am the proud president of the Glendale Unified School District, and I am here on behalf of the Board of Education, Vice President Greg Krikorian, members Jennifer Freeman, Armina Garpetian, and also Sean Sahakian. We have spent much time and deliberation and made a decision to go into this exchange because it is the best thing for our students, the best thing for our families, and for our schools. And what is good for the schools, I'm going to say, is good for the city of Glendale. So to answer a previous question, what is the public benefit? What is the city getting out of this? I'm going to tell you. Wonderful schools and a wonderful community. As long as our schools in Glendale, and you know we are super and we do a fabulous job and we're known for that. That is the benefit if you're looking for a public benefit. Great schools equals great community. You've heard from many folks today, from our Teachers Association to the parents and our classified employees, the one who actually does the work of the cleaning and the taking care of our facilities, the one who was not here today. They're all for this proposal because they know what it means. The revenues that we will generate initially, we're going to grow into that space. And in the meantime, we're going to use those dollars for our kids. That is the plan. We cannot afford to pay $15 million just to renovate that building. It does not even have fire sprinklers. That is how old it is. 45-year-old building. So we urge you, I recognize as a member of a body that you have many things to consider and many different demands on you. I do recognize that. And we ask you, though, to consider and weigh the positive impact the exchange will have on our entire community, including the GUSD parents, the families, 2,600 employees, teachers and staff, and 26,000 students. It is good for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Niels Cotter, please. Oh. Zaven Kazazian, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. Well, I am not in favor of this project. I am definitely in favor of the fact that the school district needs a different place, but I'm very, very disappointed in the school district. As far as Carmel Partners are concerned, they're in for profit. I don't blame them. They are going to make money. This is their job. This is their business. So there's nothing wrong with what Carmel wants to do. I am disappointed in the school district because they are not considering the community. They're not considering the size of this building, and they're not considering what's going to do to the traffic already strangleholding the entire community. Wilson already has the Lemley. Wilson already has the new hotel that's being built. Wilson already has the YMCA building. Wilson also put this building there, and then all of a sudden you have gridlock. Right now, the fire department, if they try to go down Central, they basically try and avoid every street because they cannot get to any place to put out fires or help somebody with a heart attack. We're going to have the same thing happen with Wilson. The same thing will happen with Jackson. The same thing will happen with Kenwood, California. All of these streets are going to be gridlocked. We need to decide the fact that we've already spoiled Central. Are we going to do the rest of the community the same thing? This is not what we need. And I urge the school district to find a different way to address their issues. There's no question about it. It's an old building. The school district has not done anything to upkeep that building. It's their fault, and they're basically now trying to have the community pay for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Eric Yesayan, he left. Mike Mohill. Sir, address me.
Don't leave, please. Good evening. Name is Mike Mohill. Commissioner, who's making money on this deal? Kelmer Properties, located in one of the busiest thoroughfares in Glendale. As previously reported in my Glendale Community newsletter, according to the Los Angeles Times article of June 2017, state records show Glendale has more than 100% fulfilled the state requirements. That is, more housing than in the cities of Burbank, Pasadena, La Cañada, Flintridge, Los Angeles, Arcadia, etc. To comply with state law, Glendale developed the Downtown Specific Plan in 2006. The DSP was designed to have all future housing in our downtown area and not have mega projects butting next to or especially inside residential neighborhoods. In addition, being designated as property within the DSP would mean the developer would be paying for their own EIR reports, and developers outside the DSP with all the problems of uncontrolled urban growth. Many longtime residents never expected our civic leaders would violate the laws on which they campaign. This commission can send a message to council. Downzone the school district area. Please advise GUSD they should place their new building wishes on the existing parking lot with underground parking and use the rest of the land for a great and needed park. After all, council just recently removed the last remaining green space at Central Park for another building. In addition, I find it offensive that the school board has sent a letter with their students to their parents promoting selling the school district headquarters. And finally, how many school officials who are in this room and want this project, do they live next door to this project at Jackson and Wilson? None, trust me. This is all for greedy people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mulhill. Okay. Rankin? This is your last name, sir. I apologize.
R-A-N-K-I-N.
Rankin.
I'm Jerry Rankin. I'm a longtime member of Glendale First United Methodist Church. I've attended the church for 70 years, 70 years. During this time, I have witnessed two consistent trends in the church's neighborhood. One, the construction of large new buildings. Two, the shrinkage in the number of parking spaces. On the weekdays, I now frequently find that our church parking lots are full when I arrive, requiring me to seek parking on the adjacent streets or on the Board of Education parking lot if that is not also full. The increasing development of apartment buildings in the area in recent years has changed parking accessibility from a major benefit for the church to a serious concern. The plans for the project on Wilson Avenue indicate that the proposed 286-unit residential complex at that location would replicate these previous recent projects by providing insufficient parking while at the same time eliminating parking spaces that were once available to the church and to others in the neighborhood. The city of Glendale, not individual businesses, developers, or churches, is ultimately responsible for fixing the serious parking problem that has arisen in the city. Aggravating the problem by adopting the proposed project would place an unfair burden on the people who live in the area and especially on the church whose activities at its current location have benefited the community of Glendale for more than 100 years. The city's planning division seems to be rushing into the proposed project without considering all of its short-term and long-term drawbacks or all of the promising alternatives that are available to the school district and the city. This project calls for more study and for more openness in dealing with the people who work, play, or sleep in the affected community.
Thank you very much, sir. Oh, wow. Leonard Davidian.
My name is Leonard Davidian. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association, 38 unit condominium. I would like to tell you first that we haven't received any notice of public hearing. I talked to 13 people, other people of the same building, Homeowners Association, and they didn't receive it either. I called Miss Toledo and told her, like, I think after the Thanksgiving, that we haven't received anything. And she said, and she checked, and my name was there. But still, I didn't get anything. But interestingly enough, one person got twice. But anyway, we are all opposed. This project is too big, bad for traffic, open space, lack of the whole character of neighborhood is going to change. And I think these people who are for it, they're all from school board. Either the superintendent, the board members, or the PTA members. I think they mismanaged the whole thing, the old school district, and that's what they need more space. Anyway, I got a signature from some people who had the chance to talk to. Not all of them. Do you want to have it?
Yes. You can give it to the staffer. Thank you very much, sir. Brian Waters, please. Brian Waters.
Good evening. I think doing the proposed zoning change would be problematic because you will set the precedent that you can always create a new zoning where it didn't lie before. And I believe the only reason why it's even being heard is because it's attached to the school. If you take the school prominent out of that, that's not getting passed. No one wants to see a 6-story with a pool anywhere in a nice residential neighborhood. And back to what another gentleman said, you know, you have a brand new building, the Lamley building, you have the ACE building, you have another building 1 block over, that's 5 stories. Now, that trend, if this passes, is moving east and north. What's going to stop the next developer to say, hey, look, this property is bordering the new, brand new zoning change. We're right next to it. That still counts, right? And on top of that, they're actually asking for more than what's in that zoning change. So it's not only we want to increase density by 250%, we want more. I don't believe that's fair. I don't believe, I think that is greedy. I do believe everything for the school is great. Why does it have to come with a package of that? You know, if we take out some profits and such, it could be a smaller building. I just think if you pass it, it sets the precedent, and where does it stop? Thank you.
Thank you. Naira Sorbatian.
Good evening, Commissioners. On behalf of all the concerned and now frustrated neighbors of Glendale Unified School District, I hereby urge you to deny the most conflicted, the most outrageous, the most profit-driven, and the most adverse plan of GUSD Apartments project. It is nothing but a scheme to siphon off extensive public property, over 2.6 acres of public land, accommodating one, a 40,000 square feet administrative school district building built in 1971, two modular classroom buildings, and 3, a 9-unit apartment buildings, in return for just 44,651 square feet land occupied with only one building of 116,505 square feet in total. And upzoning the community, which is disastrous, which is going to be disastrous for the community. The trade-in is accompanied and promoted under the deceptive pretext, mottos, and unjustified excuses of school building in dire need of repairs, repair costs of up to 15 to 20 million, or even ironically, strong school and strong community. The trade-in is in fact intended solely for the benefit of the developer and some city officials, school officials, and realtors who stand to benefit from the deal. The GUSD Apartments will be at the expense of and despite of the interests of the most vulnerable groups of the public, including the school children of the Allen Daly High School, which is going to operate during the whole construction of the GUSD Apartments complex, the preschool children of the nearby churches, elderly, disabled, and infants of the surrounding residential buildings or institutions who have to inhale the pollution dust and the demolition and everything associated with the construction. There is adverse impact on the public's quality of life, dramatic traffic congestion, increase of traffic noise, aggravation of present parking shortage for existing buildings of the vicinity, construction noise, increase of accidents, fatality rates due to the number of people to be brought into the small area, obstruction of natural light, distortion of scenery, open space needed for visual relief, impairment of landscape, air pollution, and massive scope, due to the construction and massive scope of the multi-unit complex in the geographically small area, which is already densely populated. Health hazards, there is possible air leaks that could happen because of the oil tank there, and asbestos and lead, which can result easily from the demolition of the buildings. Distortion of the community, homey, low-rise character, that current character of the community, drop in the adjacent home values.
Ma'am, can you wrap it up?
Thank you very much. So I would just urge you considering this and voting no on these resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tamara O'Connor, please.
I'm speaking as an individual. I'm pretty active in the city, and I really appreciate you taking the time to hear me. I am a long-term resident of Glendale. I happen to own several properties in Glendale. One of them is at 241 North Kenwood. We've had the 5-unit property for 18 years this month. And I just want to say, shame on you, Carmel Partners. Community outreach is part of what I do professionally. They had absolutely no stakeholder engagement. Maybe they have been working in a room with GUSD for a year, or maybe with the planners for a year. I have never even had the notification at my building. I told all my residents, the point is, it's your job to get community buy-in with the stakeholders who matter. Your job, and the Planning Commission and the planners, this is a big deal. This is a zoning change. This is really, and I really respect, especially your profession. You understand that this impacts the livability of the city. I am a huge fan of GUSD. I support everything they've said. This is the wrong development in the wrong location. The other thing is, when I had the privilege of speaking to Ms. Toledo, who generously gave me her time a few days ago when I phoned you, she told me that there were boxes and boxes of letters that's come in from the public weighing in on that. So let me get this straight. You guys don't even know what those letters say? That's going to go, do you?
We do, yes.
Okay, the public needs to know. You are going to have a huge fight on your hands, as will City Council, unless you get the buy-in from the public. We understand GUSD's problem, and this is a great benefit to them. But all of their supporters are talking about their new building, not the development, and that is what you need to consider. Please also consider our poor city staff. We have added 4,000 units. We have no more city staff. I've talked to every department every week, including the wonderful police force and neighborhood services. They are taxed to the max. We are fed up with development. We have to find the right thing for this property and help you at Glendale Unified find the right solution to their problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Shahed Azarian.
First off, thank you for listening to me. I just want to address some things that I heard earlier. First off, by Carmel Partners, that most of the funds are coming from equity. If you go to their website, it's just they have a bunch of equity funds, so anybody, or they're non-traded funds, I'm sure, but it's not that it's coming from the equity from the balance sheet. It's just investments from other people, and if you go look on their website, it shows all the different properties, and I'm sure they're all just these massive things. The other thing is the idea that it would increase or actually improve parking. That's obviously not possible because there's too many units, not enough parking spots, so that's absurd. The idea that it would improve traffic because there's a new traffic light, we all know that's absurd. So those are all completely wrong things. Also, the only people that are in support of this are people that are associated with the Glendale School District. And I think anybody here, if the resolution was specifically just to get them a new building, I don't think we would have any opposition. But that's not the resolution, unfortunately. The resolution is to build this Goliath monstrosity on a very small lot. And I think everybody else has already addressed, we're talking about new buildings that have already been built in the area, and we're not talking about the area, we're talking about Wilson, walking distance from this place. And another thing that was mentioned was there's a 94% occupancy rate in the newest building. There's no way that's true. I'd like to see the numbers. There's absolutely no way that's true. Everybody who lives there knows those are empty lots. There's no one taking those buildings, and they're sure as heck not paying $3,000 for a 1,000 square foot studio. And then thanks a lot if I'm at the 130, 150 mark, I could pay $2,600. Thanks for nothing. So I think these are going to stay completely vacant, as everything else has. And again, if the decision was specifically to help out the school district, which I don't think there's anyone in this community would argue we should be helping, that's not the question at hand. The question at hand is, do we build this monstrosity? And I think the answer to that is absolutely not, and absolutely not to a zone change. That's absurd. There's a reason there's a zone in place. There shouldn't be zones at all if we're just going to change the zones. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Angelica Reyes. Angelica Reyes?
Hi, good evening. As you know, my name is Angelica Reyes. I am a community member of Glendale Unified School District. I have been an active employee for about the past 7 years there. I am a classified employee, and I work at the Pacific Avenue Education Center, where Ms. Dr. Kelly King mentioned we are having lots of issues, especially with the spacing. So I'm also advocating on behalf of Glendale Unified as a parent. I'm a local control accountability plan committee stakeholder. I attend all the LCAP meetings, and I'm very much aware of the plan even before I got involved with attending board meetings. So I just want to say I'm very much in favor of this plan moving forward. It is very important to our classified employees currently working at the admin building to be safe and secure, and not to mention our students. Our students are benefiting from this, and the only profit I see from this is money to the students. And the spacing issue that we're currently experiencing right now on a 32 district-wide level. And I currently notice that even at Pacific Avenue Education Center, where we don't have enough room for classrooms, and my department, professional development, had we moved to a closer building with the admin staff, we would be able to support the Glendale Unified students that need more spacing in those rooms. So it's a whole global picture that I currently see would be a benefit to not only our community and our classified employees and our overall districts, but also as a parent. I have a child enrolled in the foreign language academic, I forgot the FLAG program is what we call it. So it's a dual immersion program. Glendale Unified School District is a very attractive school district. I come from an LAUSD county, and I've been trying to move to the district for the longest time. I cannot find anywhere place lit. So if we had, a big jump of building, then I might be able to move somewhere closer to my workspace and be able to support my son closer to my school, So I do want to strongly urge that you support this. And taking this back to the table means more planning now. And now we have to go back and spend maybe another 2 years trying to figure out where else we're going to be able to move. And currently the structure, it's not suitable according to ADA compliance. So you're going to have to now consider $50 million worth of building anyways in that current structure. That's just my opinion on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Artak Aruyan?
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to represent the community. I oppose any zoning changes. I support school. All of you guys know me. I'm a parent of 11 years old and Glendale Unified District School doing a really good job. I've been in that building a couple of times. But all people who talked in favor of this project, they don't live in this community. They don't know how this project is going to affect us, right? First of all, it's going to be pollution. It's going to be traffic, as a lot of people already told, and it's going to be increasing density of population, which is already like in Glendale. So all I'm saying is, I oppose of this project, and please vote no. If you guys wanna, and I agree that Glendale Unified District School needs better building, so then they can better serve to our students, right, to our kids, but not for, our expense. Don't, basically I'm opposed it, support it, find some other building, find some other space, and build nice and new Glendale Unified District School. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jaime Rojas.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Jaime Rojas. My parents live and are highly impacted by this project on 234 North Kenwood, right behind. We've spoken, I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but what the residents here, the community, has a huge impact. Why have zoning areas if we're going to change them? And I feel completely offended, as well as when we have the school district coming here representing and saying that it's all about business. If the devalue of our property goes down, that means less property tax, and that means less dollars to the school district. It all makes sense. At the end of the day, it's about the safety, the welfare of the people of Glendale, bottom line. I know myself, we have a lobbying firm based here, Los Angeles, San Diego, and Sacramento. We're going all out pro bono to stop this project. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And we're tired of it. We're tired of the impact of traffic. We're tired of the impact of noise. We're tired of the public safety of the kids just walking back and forth around the area. So if it's time to do something, if there's $1 million worth of revenue coming in, supposed, where's the line item of where that's going? How about giving those dollars to the teachers to be able to live in the projects that are currently here in the city of Glendale? With that, I completely oppose this project as is. Keep it within the zoning areas of what's already in the zoning area and go from there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very good. We are done with the. Oh. All right, you might as well go to the mic.
Well, I'm Greg Krikorian. Besides, I serve on the Board of Education, but there was, what I appreciate is all the dialogue today. But one thing I don't appreciate is the direct attacks and comments specifically about the Glendale Unified School District. We have great staff and teachers here. We have an interesting challenge right now. We have a unique opportunity to help our building. Our district office is challenged. I know there are some comments talking about funding. The way we deal with things, we're dealt with $3 per hour to educate children. When you talked about the bond measure, that bond measure was specifically to help solar power. And after what happened in Connecticut with Stony Brook, we had to provide safety for our schools. A lot of the Measure S dollars went to protect from our kids. We can't spend our dollars on our district office. This opportunity presents an opportunity for us to get a new district site, which we need. Now, we're not here specifically talking about Carmel's project. What I'd like to address is the comments specifically about Glendale Unified School District. Our board and our community has done a good job financially being responsible with our projects. There were some comments saying, why didn't the board be forward thinking? We have challenges in our class size. We have challenges in our facility. All we're asking for is we do need a new district office. So eventually our property is going to eventually look for, the only way for us to grow in our facility is to exchange our property. We had a brand new police station, which we applaud. We had a brand new fire station, which we applaud. We had a brand new library, which we applaud. Even this building and the Perkins building next door is a new building. Our building's from 1962. And how do we qualify spending dollars when we could reduce class size, help our tennis programs, help our athletics? All we're asking for is to really, I don't want to talk about the project. I want to talk about the Glendale Unified School District, because there was some comments here that were unfair and unjust to the work that our good principals and our members do here. And that's not respectful, because there was comments that were stated, does the Glendale Unified School Board know what they're doing? When we lose one child, it kills us. Our dollars, when that Mary Nalbanyan got accidentally run over in front of Hoover High School, we spent all of our money protecting our kids. I understand the community's here debating the development, but when I start hearing comments that impact our work that we do at serving our children every day, that hurts me. So we have a unique opportunity here to help Glendale Unified. Now, if you have to work on ramifications and whatever you guys do, that's your decision. But we're saying, on our end of the deal, this helps our kids and helps our district. That's why we're here. Thank you. Sorry for being. Thank you.
All right. I am done with the cards. And with that, I am going to close the public hearing portion of this matter and go into deliberations. But before I do that, of course you can ask questions from the staff. I was going to talk about a recess.
Oh, sure.
Does anybody want to take a 5 minute?
I need to
All right,
stop.
let's take a 10-minute recess. Very good. We're back from recess, and we will begin deliberations on this matter. During this time, commissioners may ask questions of the staff and the applicant, and let us know their thoughts. And please, in the meantime, mute your phones if you would, please. I really appreciate that. Who wants to go first? To my left, to my right?
I have a question.
Sure.
There was a comment that was brought up regarding public outreach for the community. I was wondering if you can kind of give us an idea of how many meetings were out there and how the public was notified and all of that, please.
Well, the public outreach would have to have been done by the applicant and his team. So as far as the city, we mailed out the notices to owners and occupants within 500 feet of the subject site. We also had the 20-day comment period as well, so that was complied with per our laws. So I hope I've addressed your question, but yeah, that would be the applicant and his team to do the public outreach.
Very good. I think the applicant has a comment as well.
Thank you very much. So absolutely, we've done outreach. We've knocked on every door with the tenants building there. We've knocked on doors around the immediate area, as you saw some people that we spoke to, the businesses. One of the things I wanted to note is, as of even today, this afternoon, I met with the church and the whole senior staff there. And it's unfortunate Pastor Gardner wasn't here to talk, but you know, at the end of the day, the thing that we talk about, we say, you know, we may not be able to get everything that you want, but we'll definitely listen. And from Pastor Gardner and his staff, you know, what we heard was, we have a parking issue, and how can we solve this together? And so we're working on that, and we're planning on meeting every week until this project is approved, hopefully, to solve that issue for the church, number one. So that's a large group of stakeholders. They do a lot of programs after school. They have a parking requirement. They currently park on the school site. Part of the time, my plan is to help solve that issue. As soon as we receive some of these comment letters too, literally the same day that I received them, I reached out to the folks on those comment letters. I met with Naira this morning, and although we may not be 100% on the same page, I think the conversation was constructive and respectful, and I plan on continuing those meetings until we get to the City Council. We will do everything we can to make this harmonious with the community. We think this is a fantastic project, and I think it's, in some cases, the uncertainty that creates negativity, and so our goal is to sit down. In fact, the person who came up just now to say that we had an outreach, I will be meeting with her as soon as possible, and we will explain the project, hopefully understand what the real issues are. So I just want to know that, I want you all to know that we are extremely committed to doing that, finding hopefully the place that everyone can accept, because at the end of the day, this is sort of an opportunity for all of us to make a great outcome through this partnership. So we plan on partnering with the community also.
I really appreciate you saying that, and I don't mean to pile on, but that needed to be done before this special meeting of the Planning Commission, so that the negative comments would not have been made, because that's what throws everything off kilter.
Sure.
Thank you very much, sir.
Off kilter is the right word. I don't have any questions from either staff or the developer. I was briefed by the staff. It was supposed to have taken about 20 minutes. It took about an hour and 15 minutes. Not through any fault of theirs. I was just a little bit pressing over. So I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate your input as the developers, as Carmel Partners, GUSD, and the community at large. Not an easy situation to be in. It's a great situation to be in for you wanting to expand, but what you're leaving behind matters. These have been your neighbors for a very, very long time. And I guess I will start deliberating about this thing, right? Look, let me tell you what my thoughts are on this thing. About a decade ago, about 12 years ago, downtown specific plan was adopted by the city council. In fact, Chair Manukian was serving on the planning commission at that time. And I was part of a task force. Few of the faces that I saw here were also part of that task force. That task force involved the stakeholders in the community, homeowners, neighbors, business owners, apartment building owners, building owners, and all of that. They met about 8 or 9 times, and Phil will correct me if I'm wrong. And after that, they made some recommendations to the Planning Commission and to the City of Glendale. When the borders of downtown specific plan was delineated, when that ordinance, when that zoning was adopted, there was a compact that was made between the city government and the community at large, the residents of City of Glendale. By compact, I'm talking about an understanding or an agreement. And ever since, that compact has been articulated many, many times in most of our council meetings. That compact was the following. I'm just going to read you a part of it. This is a policy point coming from the downtown specific plan document itself. That page is page 13.1110. To concentrate growth in the downtown Transit Ridge Entertainment Employment Cultural Center, to relieve development pressures on existing residential neighborhoods, to relieve development pressures on existing residential neighborhoods. Where we are, where GUSD is located at, is a multifamily residential neighborhood. The very fact that we want to export the boundaries of downtown specific plan, in my opinion, will throw this compact out of equilibrium. This is why I liked when you said out of kilter. It will throw it out of that. There is a pact that has been made by the city government and the residents. That pact, when it was adopted, downtown specific plan, did not say that this is a moving delineated line, that you can move it when it serves you or retract it when it doesn't. It said this is the plan. And in this plan, you are able to do mixed uses, very high density, provided you do not infiltrate the other residential neighborhoods. And I have a problem with that. In the past 3 or 4 amendments that DSP has had about its borders, has been really tweaking the borders, has been working with the borders, properties that straddle the border, and what they call the split properties. Nothing extraordinary has happened. Nobody in the past 12 years has said, hey, here's downtown specific plan. We're going to take this zoning, boom, put it here, because it fits the project. And that's the overarching argument that I have about this. Now, I'm going to drill down a little bit into the project level, and hopefully this will give you some thoughts. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. Some thoughts about where I'm headed with this thing. By no means I'm against development. I am a realtor. I am a private property rights advocate, and I understand the both sides of the issue. I wish there was enough land for Carmel to develop because they could be a great partner for the city. And I wish there was enough buildings that Greg Krikorian and the board would be able to occupy for our, for their facility purposes. But there isn't. So therefore, we need to come to some sort of terms. What is right for the community? What would serve GUSD? Although, in front of us is a land use issue, right? It has nothing to do with what GUSD is going to buy or not buy. Going down to project, drilling down to project level. 29 workforce residences, to me, is not, it's a show of public benefit. It is not enough. Not when you're asking what this site today would afford you about half, less than half that density. For you to come out and say, all right, we want the DSP zoning to be moved to this location and be able to build 286 residences or apartments. And if this was within the community plan, South Glendale community plan, or by right development, the most you would be able to get is about 150, 151 if we get the SB 1818 in there. Now, I have seen this city council turn around and say, if you're going to give me affordable housing, I have no problems with doubling your density. I think that's the route you should have gone, not the 286 units. And I, from what you're telling me, you had to because the other side of the up leg. So I have an issue with that. I do not consider this as public benefit. Let's talk about Daily High. You are going to leave Daily High behind. Daily High is not going to come to 452 Colorado. Daily High is 18,000 square feet. Has only about 11, or was it 15, Ms. Toledo?
No, 18,000 square feet with 15 parking spaces.
15 parking spaces. Today, if we were to go out and ask a private school, now I know I can't ask GUSD to tinker with their parking. If I were to ask a private school that wants to occupy an 18,000 square foot building, how many parkings do you need? They're going to say, we can't put a private school here because the requirement would be the requirement of an assembly parking. Am I correct or not? Anywhere about maybe 10
Approximately
per
10
thousand.
per thousand of instruction area.
Okay. So that's 180 parkings. So when we're leaving Daily High, that is an issue right there. They're not going to have enough parking to begin with. Today, they may have been able to use the parking, and I know you suggested that that's an impossibility, but I've parked in that lot. It's not that bad, by the way. So that's an issue that I have, or a concern that I have. Now let's talk about the variances. As part of the staff report, they are asking us that this project is going to require 2 variances. One of them is the wraparound around the parking structure. Am I correct, staff?
Yes, that is correct.
In the downtown specific plan, the only way you can have a wraparound around the parking is if the property is commercial. This property has no commercial component. So I have an issue with that. I have an issue with that because when you go to your Exhibit 1, whereas number 2 and whereas number 6, it incorporates the findings of this variance in that resolution. We have not seen any findings in front of us so far as this variance is concerned. By incorporating is that, I mean, it makes the nexus, therefore you have to depend on it and make the finding. So that's an issue that I have. There was a lot of talk about splitting the block.
I invite you to look at this again. And imagine this is the entire block, which it is. If this is not splitting the block, I don't know what is. This actually does split the block, but that's not an issue in my opinion. You can still work around it. And then I want to talk a little bit about mitigated negative declaration versus EIR. In the downtown specific plan since 2010, according to staff, out of the 19 projects, only 4 projects were approved by negative declaration and or mitigated negative declaration. 14 of them had either full EIRs, 4 of them had full EIRs, the rest had the downtown EIR being amended. Why is that important? Well, let me share this with you. In an EIR, perhaps, and I'm not that technical, but I will venture and I'll take this leap forward, and they will correct me if I'm wrong. One of the sections that you can actually ask for a project to be looked at is what is known as alternate projects or alternative projects. Who knows what other alternative project can be available on this? This is not to say that using MND is being the wrong approach. They have chosen to do that. The staff has done their study and said the MND is, or mitigated negative declaration is sufficient. And that's fine. But that is another concern that I have. I think by now you know where I'm headed with my decision. But I will tell you this much. This needs to be developed. There is no questions about it. I think it can, but not at this kind of density. See, when the resolutions are asking me to find this consistent with the general plan, my first reaction is, well, gosh, you already have a zoning that is consistent with the general plan. If you want to do anything over and above that with density, where is the public benefit? The discussion that I've had tonight, other than the benefit to the Glendale school district, basically with the new property, there is no other property. There is no other public benefit for the surrounding area. And when you look at it, that downtown specific plan was designed, that compact was made, that we will allow you to do projects like you have done in downtown, but do not infiltrate our residential areas. Those are all issues. If you were to come to me today as a commissioner, one individual commissioner, say, look, I will give you the 60% of AMI, right? Can you double my density? I will say, oh, heck, I will go out of my way to do that. And that will bring you to 200 units, but certainly not 280 units. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
One second.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify one item to follow up on Commissioner Ostorian's regarding the parking for private school, because this is a high school, so it grades 10 or above has a higher parking requirement. It would be actually 28.6 per 1,000 square feet of floor area used for instruction, or 1 space per each 5 fixed seats.
That's 360
Just wanted
parking
to clarify.
spaces.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give me a second. Are you going to say something in connection to?
Yes.
Okay, go.
I'm kind of just actually going to dovetail on what Commissioner Asatorian said. You mentioned a lot of points that I was going to speak about, so I'll kind of go over things that you haven't talked about. So you mentioned the zone change, and one other thing that I was going to mention regarding the zone change is what is going to prevent others in the area to not come back and request us to do this zone change. So we have a dilemma. We have a very we have a project that's very aggressive in saying, and then we have an issue with GUSC, and we want to make sure that we resolve what our Glendale Unified School District wants. So I think we need to make sure that we understand what the needs are, and we need to make sure also to look at how our city is going to grow and what are the negative impacts of a project that might be to the city. I think you could have done a better public outreach in the beginning, so you could have brought in more folks on board on your design. If your neighbors or neighborhood knows what's going on and they come to meetings, they'll be able to give you feedback before you come to commission or council. Another thing that I was going to mention was the design of the project. The scale of the project currently for the location is just too big. The 6-foot sidewalk, and actually that was mentioned by the staff, with a very long facade along the entire Jackson Avenue would make it intimidating for pedestrians to actually walk on that area. So if you're not comfortable walking in the area, will you actually go and use the park? So that kind of all goes, together. The project itself, looking at it, might be good, but is it good for that region, for that area, for the zone? Also, one other thing that I noticed when I was looking at the development agreement, the developer is getting a lot from this project. And yes, in return, we get a new building for GUSC, but I feel that there's more that could be negotiated with the developer. So I actually urge maybe the city staff to go back and work with the developers, and depending on how this proceeds, to see what is it that we can do that both the city gets something and the developer gets something. Currently, we lack in parks in the city. As they mentioned, in the vicinity of the project, we don't have enough green space and we don't have open space. I know that the lot that's currently there had been promised before to residents that maybe in the future would be a park. So not specifically that, but what is it that could be done for the city as of green space that is not going to just overwhelm the block? It's not just going to actually make it an exception for a special project, and at the same time has it that we can actually address the issue of GUSD. Can I propose something? Or
actually, hold on.
And then I guess another thing is I don't think this is NIMBYism. I am pro-growth. I think growth is needed for the city. It's just the growth needs to be done accordingly, and the scale of this project seems to be just very large for this area. This is already a very high density area. And again, changing that zone will just cause other neighbors to come back to us and request the same exact request that you were having and wanting us to go further and basically give them a higher density. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, let me pay respect to all the teachers, Glendale Unified School District. I really appreciate your efforts and the level of education that you provide for Glendale. Okay. Having said that, yes, I did have problems just because Glendale Unified School District was involved with this project. That I struggle with this, when I looked at the project. If someone, I think one of the speakers mentioned that if GUSD was removed from this, I have no issue with making this decision. I resonate with what fellow commissioners are saying right now. And, let me simply put, because I'm not going to belabor the whole point here. It is a spot zoning. And you throw in the 247 North Jackson in there, two wrongs don't make it right. It is spot zoning. And fellow commissioners have said that. It takes long thought process, takes decade to go forward and implement this type of specific plans. I don't know when the next one is. But there are reasons for that. The reasons for setting the boundaries and reasons for protecting those zoning. So, you know, with all due respect, with what your needs are, you know, I have to do my due diligence to find those 4 findings to justify my decision here. Now, when I asked questions before, so besides GUSD benefit, because the GUSD is not entire city, so what other benefits are there? And some of my questions were directing towards that. They're really open space. You know, you're using park funds to develop another park. Doesn't do it for me, doesn't cut it for me. If we are going to go out of way to make something happen, I think there has to be, you know, something really meaningful benefit for the city. What are we lacking? Affordable housing. So that's why I kept asking, do you have that component in there? You have none. So what I see is really development that's at the market rate development that is going to benefit the pockets of the developer. Well, actually, if we approve this thing, we're going to issue a carte blanche. And I'm not about to do that. My conscience don't tell me to do that. Again, going back to the very basic issue here, it is a spot zoning, and I will not go for that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Satoru.
Well, the way I see it is that everything we're talking about, to me, it's a Glendale Unified School District. And when you're saying Glendale Unified School District, we're talking about our community. We're talking about our kids, we're talking about our schools, and this is what is very important for me. This is not just a normal, regular business. That's the way I see it. So I know that there are, with the documents that I read, there are so many things that probably should have been different, or maybe it needs some modification or some reevaluation. But then again, the time limit that I see that we have to do this by next week or the week after that, I don't understand it, because an issue and important as it is for our community, this pressure, time pressure, I don't think that's doable. For me, for Glendale Unified School District, an opportunity like this, it's not going to happen again to have a place like that. I've been there. I know exactly that how they are operating their budget. I know that they don't have that luxury of millions of dollars to go and upgrade their school district. The headquarters, I heard that it will take about 20 million or 15 million just to upgrade your existing building. And then comparing that with what we on 425 Colorado, I don't think even that's going to be comparable with that building which is there. So to me, the project, it's an excellent one, and I think it's a good project for Glendale Unified School District. Maybe I don't agree with everything that has been written on the document that the Carmel LLC has. I have so many notes there, which if the time comes, then I have my suggestions and some of my questions about that. I don't want to get there. But to me, at this point, the important part is that I can see there is an opportunity for Glendale Unified School District. There's something that for years and years, probably they were waiting to have something like that. It never happened, and it will never happen. Their budget, it's in a way that always they have to either they are in red, or they have to cut some projects in order to get something else done, or to go to something like Measure S and get some money from the public. So that's why what I like to see is that if we could kind of look into those little things, or maybe those important things that we should suggest in order to get this project going, I will be for it. And I hope that there will be a way to come up with something that, first of all, will satisfy the Planning Commission with all the questions that they have, but also it will be something that our community will be, I think, very happy to have a building like that for our Glendale Unified School District, because at the end of the day, we're talking about our kids. And for that, we have to understand that this is not just a regular business that somebody wants to buy a property, the other one wants to sell it, so we are looking as a business. I think this is true, it's a business, but then again, it's our community, it's our families, it's our kids, and it's our schools. And that is a part that I think for me, it's very valuable.
Very good. Let me ask a question from the commissioners. Would any change in the application that's before you, would any change make a difference?
May I?
Sure.
So the way I see this is if the zone change doesn't go through, then the developer can apply for a project that fits within the zone, the current zone, which is high density. And that will actually, because it's not in downtown specific plan, it would send the project actually to the design review board. So we would have, we won't have to review that. So, and after that, would it even need to go to council at that point?
If the project is located in the R1250
Yes.
zone, not the DSP, the design review board would be the authorized or the board that would review this project. It's within their purview. If there are still variances proposed, those variances would go before a hearing officer.
Okay. So I suggest, again, I think it's very crucial that we understand that Glendale Unified School District needs this. So we don't want to eliminate that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our residents, our city is not impacted negatively. And I feel like we are all on the same page on that. So the way I see it, if we keep it in a current zone, we have a smaller size or a project that fits within this current zone with the incentives that it applies to it, then we'll be able to, I'll be able to support that. I mean, it wouldn't come to us, but that's something that I can see. And then knowing that the design review board will be able to actually review it and give their expert opinion is something that I think would be very helpful.
Well, you know what? I think what I heard from the applicant is that within the R1250 zone doesn't pencil out.
Yeah.
That's why they are coming here for a zone change, and that's what we're handling here.
Yeah.
So, you know, if let's say what things will make our mind change, I think that will take another round of a review, recommendation, and all that. But for right now, what we have, and you know, for the applicant considered to the existing condition, they were asking for more, you know, before that, and then they backed out. So I don't know if they're going to make any more concessions on their development because of the simple fact that it doesn't pencil out. So I think we just need to, you know, deliberate and then make decision on what we have here today.
Okay.
Thanks. The city attorney, a question. So we are going to take each resolution at a time, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
If, and I don't know how the votes will go. I know how mine will go. If these resolutions, if one of them is not done, or anyways, this is an advice, it doesn't matter. So in other words, if we adopt the resolution or not, would it matter?
It does matter from the perspective that as the planning commission, you have a duty to
Recommend or not?
make a recommendation.
Or not recommend?
Or not make a recommendation.
Or make a, what?
A
An
recommendation
amendment to
with
the resolution?
conditions, yes. Because whatever it is that you include.
Or a new motion, in other words, is what you.
You could do that as well to capture additional thoughts that you might have, but it would all come forward within the context of a recommendation. You're the recommending body on the project to the city council.
I see. Okay.
May I ask a question, actually? The comments that city staff had, and I'm trying to find it in the PowerPoint. The comments that the staff had, doesn't that kind of actually read as if the, thank you, if the project was in a high-density zone? Could you tell us what the height is for a high-density zone? Did you say it's 3 stories only right now?
Our 1250 is 3 stories, 36 feet. They get an additional 5 feet with the roof pitch of, additional 5 feet with a roof pitch of 3 and 12. So essentially 41 feet would be for a project similar to this roof style.
Okay, so you were requesting a 4-story building. That's what you were asking for on the recommendations.
Oh, I see. Well, what we were
But that's DSP zoning.
correct.
It's not 1250.
So what we said was to reduce the overall mass of the project by providing a 4-story structure while allowing for 5th-story units if they are not visible from adjacent streets, from all streets.
Thank you. I just wanted to see what was the difference between, so it's 1-story difference. Basically, instead of 3-story, it would be a 4-story building. That's what you would recommend, or you would want us to consider?
No.
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 Versus current zoning, yes.
Versus current zoning, yes, to clarify.
We would recommend allowing a 5th story if you couldn't see it from the opposing side.
Yes,
So-
the invisible 5th story.
So let me ask you this. If a developer comes in a current zoning R1250 and says, you know what, I'll give you the affordable housing component. Have we ever made in the past, in any one of the projects that have had affordable housing components, have we given them an exception to the height and all of that, or no?
Yes.
We have done that. So that could be an incentive, even at that R1250.
Yes.
That limits you at 3, you can go to 4. There you have your answer. So
Thank you.
You're absolutely correct. And I don't know
Imagine
where that
that,
gets us,
something-
but I don't know where
Imagine
that
that,
gets
something
us,
can
but
be
this
done.
is what it is.
But
Okay.
You have issue with the density, though.
All right.
If I may make a suggestion, Mr. Chair, and then
By
the
all
rest is up to you. If we are not going to be adopting the alley vacation, the 3 resolutions, and if we were to make a recommendation, a motion,
A singular recommendation.
one singular recommendation that, and maybe Mrs. Sadurian would disagree with that it is not the general, but almost the consensus of the Planning Commission that the density should be with the SB 1818 to the highest that an SB 18 can allow, right? That would be, I mean, that's the clean way out of this, because it's going to look at the council. Council is going to make its decision on it.
So you are suggesting that we do not approve the zone change, and we basically you're recommending for the applicant to work with staff on
No.
the current zone.
We are taking a motion, and the motion is that we, as a planning commission, suggest within the confine of 1250 zoning for the council to make the highest findings if there is a affordable housing component
To the project.
to make the highest findings, and I bet you that will go up to about anywhere between 170 to 200 units, or maybe even more a little bit, right? But now you have an affordable housing component and something that is less, which also does not impact the community around it. That will be my suggestion.
May I suggest something? I recommend, very similar to what you're recommending, a little different, that basically we are going to vote no on the general plan amendment from what you're saying.
Well, we're not
in a
doing
way.
that.
Well,
Yes, but
If we were
can
to
we
vote,
just completely leave that? I mean, I don't know if we can just completely not even look at the resolution.
Yeah, well, that's what I asked.
Well, your question's a little bit more complicated than that. In terms of what the results are of the resolution, it's a recommendation. So
So that's
we'll
what-
be asked to pass your judgment on these resolutions, yes or no. And either the recommendation would be to move forward or not move forward with the project as proposed, because that's what this describes. But we can include, in response to your earlier question, additional information such as what you've described, along with any, so the motion could be that the resolution is not approved. However, these additional recommendations are recommended
To the council.
for the council's consideration. You can do that, yes.
So I guess then the motion would be to reject or reject the current resolution and then recommend to cancel to, or actually, I would suggest for the staff and the applicant to work together on a possibility of a new plan before even getting to council, because I have a feeling the council will want to see what you have to propose. Going to council without anything, it will make it difficult for them to make a decision.
Mr. Chair,
Actually, give me a second.
Yeah.
So this matter is calendared before the council on January what?
We haven't officially.
23rd.
It's the 23rd.
Okay, so, I'm trying to see what it would look like. So the applicant gets up there and tells the council that this is what it is proposing to do by way of developing the property in question, right? And staff is going to tell the council, oh, by the way, your planning commission has reviewed this, but has this opted not to recommend it. However, your planning commission would like you to consider the following, right? And one of them would be keep this property as a R1250, right? Okay.
And?
But my understanding was we
hold
can't opt out. That's what council was saying, that we can't
No,
opt
hold
out.
on. I'll tell you what's going on. Go ahead.
Can I make a comment here, please? What's been proposed to us here had actually property exchange,
Yeah.
term in here too. Because with the DSP, they could go into that type of relationship to make dollar cents. If we take that off the table, I do not know if Carmel Partners will even offer that, exchange to GUSD, and we're actually then GUSD. I don't know if they even want to do exchange. So, I guess my, what I'm having, a little problem here is really, we can vote on it to make recommendation or not recommendation, and that will force them to do other things, but we cannot, make recommendation. Well, our top, we can throw them all these menu items that we can, the city can offer and the state can offer, but by the, at the end of the day, that may not work for them to make that exchange.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, so our job is not really, I don't think, to really get into into that of those options, but just simply make the recommendation here, make the decision.
Yeah, if you have the option, of providing a vehicle to staff, the applicant or the city council, to come up with a third way, so to speak, such that the school district gets what it wants, the applicant gets what it wants, and the neighbors, I have no problem spending 10 minutes talking about it or adding a couple of words here and there to enable people, to give people that vessel for action. That's all I'm saying. Clearly, we are here to recommend. So we can recommend to, or we can recommend not to. But is there a way of just fostering further dialogue and action such that maybe this can work out? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I suggest we vote on yes or no, and then as part of that, let's say no, but we recommend that council looks into a possibility of giving the applicant the flexibility to go further. So that's
what
but
I've been
and I see the applicant is raising their hand. Maybe they have something to say. That's okay. as Commissioner Lee said, they might not even at that point want to continue working with the GUSD. So that's why we should make that a motion in a way. Yes.
Members of the commission, just so that you know what the options are for the city council after your vote under the government code, so they can approve it, modify it, or disapprove your recommendation, provided that any modification of the proposed ordinance or amendment by the legislative body not previously considered by the planning commission during its hearing, so if it hasn't been discussed here, shall first be referred back. So if it's a significant, previously not considered component, they would have to be sent back here by statute. But if you have fleshed it out in terms of a recommendation, they can move forward with that.
So the more we talk, the better it is. Because
So long
we
as it's
consider-
constructive.
Yeah, well,
Why don't we, if I may suggest, why don't we start taking vote? Because if one of these resolutions does not pass, the project, the way that you see it, would not pass, basically. So at times, applicants have been quite happy with the denial so they can get to council as quickly as they can.
sure.
But denial is not what I am suggesting. What I'm suggesting is let's take each resolution one by one. Let's take a vote and see who votes what on it. And I guess that's the cleanest way to do it, right? All right. That's what in front of us.
All right, so we are going into that phase, but before that,
Mr. Chair,
let's
you want
have
to
the-
open.
Are you
you
gonna
open-
open the?
I'm opening the, whatever it is I open.
Thank you very much. So I truly appreciate the feedback, and I think they're all valid points. I think Commissioner Lee, you brought up something, which is that, you know, there reaches a point. So we are a private company that, call it 80% of our investors are not for profit, but our company is for profit. And at the end of the day, in the world that I live in, you know, a project with an affordable component that's very, very high, or different sort of gives, call them, there reaches a point where the project becomes no longer feasible. And at the end of the day, it's not my decision. It's not even our CEO's decision. There has to be a construction loan behind the project, even billion-dollar funds. And I want to make it clear that although, you know, the R1250 zoning, and I understand the points you're all making, that density is value, right? Affordable housing takes value out of a project, even though it's very important. And so even if we want to make the exchange happen, we cannot make that happen under the R12550 zoning because there isn't the density to support the land value. And so I would tell you that all of this has been appraised professionally. All of this whole exchange has taken months and months to happen. But if we don't get this upzoning, this exchange cannot happen. And I understand that that's a decision you may take. I respect that decision. But I truly want to emphasize what's really at stake, because by voting, by recommending a no, there's a chance that this whole thing, well, actually a very good chance, whole thing unravels, which again is you're absolutely right, and I respect that right. But I would tell you what's at stake right now. And if we could have done it from the beginning, we absolutely would have done it that way. But it's just purely dollars and cents, and I unfortunately have no kind of say in the matter. So I just want to make that clear to all of you. And I really appreciate the feedback. I think it's great feedback. We will absolutely take that into account. But I would ask you very respectfully to vote in favor of this project based on what's at stake here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm closing whatever I open.
Let's take a vote.
Okay,
All right, before,
vote, we are voting for what?
Resolutions.
we are voting for a
286.
motion that someone needs to make.
Yeah, I know. So what is the motion then?
Well, these gentlemen seem, and this lady, are the prime movers of,
So where you
Sorry, I cannot make a motion for a resolution that I've just criticized, so.
okay.
So what you were recommending was to actually go through all the motions?
You have three,
So basically,
three resolutions.
All we have to do is, yeah, I can't read it.
We have to take each resolution
Just read.
one at a time. You have three resolutions, plus an alley vacation,
plus
That's it. Two resolutions and a motion.
Yeah.
the re-resolution.
All right.
All right. then
Okay, I am going to read Exhibit 1, resolution, the first resolution. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Glendale, California, recommending approval of proposed amendment to the general plan land use map, the downtown specific plan maps, case number PGPA 172574746, and the zoning map, all in connection with a request for a zone change, case number PZC 1725725, for the proposed Jackson Street apartment project, 206 North Kenwood Street and 223-241 North Jackson Street.
there has to be a second for it.
Does anybody want to second this?
I'll second it for conversation. Let's take a vote.
No, wait, no. First of all, if it is your intention of voting no, with respect, you have no business seconding.
Okay. Then I'll take back my second.
Is there another resolution that says?
I'm sorry.
By the way, I wasn't making a motion, I was just reading this. So this, what I read was to support the current zone change.
Right. So
What
then-
I read,
then we
yes.
can-
So I wasn't making a motion, I was reading this so everyone knew what we were voting on.
Okay, we're, with respect, we're following the wrong path here. All we need is somebody to say, the Planning Commission of the City of Glendale hereby recommends to the City Council to reject,
Not to recommend.
not to recommend.
Okay, I can read that then.
Reject, where's my,
You can do it that way,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
If that works better for the commission.
All yours.
reject these, just read that.
All right. So I'm actually going to make a motion. Planning Commission is making a recommendation to City Council to reject the following. Project zoning map amendment, location 206 North Kenwood Street and 223, 241, and 247 North Jackson Street. And I'm going to read all of these. I think we're only voting for 3 of them. General plan
We'll do
amendment.
one by one, right?
No,
No.
you don't have to do that.
General plan amendment, case number PGPA 1725746. Zone change case number PZC 1725725. Development agreement case number PDA 1726520. Alley vacation case number 186B.
Second.
And I don't think we are voting on the proposed meeting in that.
Okay, do I have a second for
Second.
that?
So we're voting to reject.
Yeah.
If you vote yes, you're voting to reject.
Right. Or not recommend.
There is 4 resolutions.
Yes.
All 4 are?
Yes.
She read them all.
She ran them all.
No, there's the development agreement as well.
Yes. Can we have the roll?
May I have roll call, please?
Planning Commissioners Astorian,
Yes.
D.
Aye.
Saturian,
Yes?
Shabazian.
Yes.
Chairperson Malukia.
No. Well, we're done.
Thank you all for coming.
We're not done. I mean, we're done, but we're not done. Next order of business, Community Development Department updates. Do we have any? Do we have any? No. Comments from commissioners?
We don't have.
All right, then we adjourn.
Thank you.
So moved.